Welcome to the Unfucked podcast. Today, my guest is Adam Giles. Adam is a very long-time friend of mine, and we get into the nitty-gritty and the deep details that are involved in the art of coaching. We start by trying to define what coaching is, because today it can be a very abstract concept. There's everything from life coaches to psychological coaches to fitness coaches to sport-specific coaches. And in between all of that kind of misconception, people tend to write black and white descriptions of what a coach should or shouldn't be. And people generally have the wrong concept of what is actually happening. To be honest, this is probably one of my favorite conversations that I've ever had. It might be my favorite podcast to date. It's taken me a while to put it out because I've listened to it quite a few times to try to really actually understand how deep we went with it and how the details of it really illuminate both Adam and myself's journey with becoming a coach and really coming into our position where we believe that it is not only our road to take in life, but also a profession that is demanding of respect and worth the professionalism that we need to put into it. I don't want to try to summarize this because the way this conversation unfolds has like an organic process, and I don't think it should be reduced to a series of bullet points or action item lists that we can just throw into ChatGPT that would make it convenient for you to kind of digest the parts that you want. I'm going to ask that the listener listens to the whole thing through because it really does weave a thread and a story to really make the tapestry of what this conversation becomes. So although this conversation is geared towards the art of coaching, I really do think that the subject matter would do a lot of service for people that are just interested in development, and the patrons of coaches would get a lot out of this conversation by understanding the processes that we go through in order to help them arrive at whatever goal that they're seeking. So please enjoy, drop comments and feedback, share with your friends or other coaches that you know if you think that this is useful. I proudly present to you Adam Giles. Welcome to the Unfucked podcast. My name is Michael Blevins. I've been training some of the world's most elite performers for over 15 years, from iconic actors and athletes to soldiers and CEOs. I'm an entrepreneur, an athlete, and an obsessive when it comes to human behavior.
Man looks in the abyss. There's nothing staring back at him. At that moment, man finds his character. And that is what keeps him out of the abyss. I think I understand.
When we're talking about coaching, we're talking about the same thing. But I don't think that other people are talking about the same thing. And you mentioned the other day when trying to talk about the business side of it, you're like, there's life coaching, which gives you kind of like the hairs on the back of your head raise up because they think every single one of those just imagines you're in a crowd of people jumping up and, doing like some Tony Robbins empowerment shit. Mm-hmm. And for whatever reason, and I want to be clear, like I'll make fun of that. I don't think it's bad necessarily. And I see like a ton of value, and I think those people know what they're talking about. I think just how it affects people or what the business model is the problem. But that aside, when you start talking about coaching, you really have to get specific on what you're coaching. The other problem is when you say, I'm a coach and I do physical fitness, I'm kind of I'm appealing to the people that go, oh, you coach soccer players or you do this one specific thing. And this is part of the problem. People need a black and white answer for what a word means. I agree. But also, there's no imagination towards what it could be. And that's where I think maybe if I had like any job, it would be probably to illuminate or help define what a coach is. But on that aspect, in your opinion, like what do you think about coaching?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. So I don't know where to start with this. Like coaching is a broad topic, and like you said, it's quite undefined in terms of what it is. It's some of the things that I've been experiencing, stepping back into coaching recently, which I I've been coaching the whole time, but like properly stepping back into it rather than just kind of like keeping it warm on the side. And as a result, because I'm not necessarily just doing fitness coaching or CrossFit coaching, which was my previous, and trying to take it in a new direction, trying to explain what I do, it's been quite challenging because, again, like you say, and I'm not a massive fan of labels, but I do, like you just said, I see the inherent need for them. But the example I was kind of giving you the other day was like, if you ask for a plumber, you kind of know what you're getting and you know what job he's going to do. Whereas I think I'm not always sure that everyone's clear on what coaching is. And ultimately, if someone adds value, like the term life coach, I think it's just because it's been like sort of satirically, like, you know, people just joke about, there's that meme, right? As soon as I say it, you kind of have a mental picture of what a life coach looks like. And like everyone does. And I kind of want to meld things together as well. I'm multi-passionate about a lot of different things, and I want to help people with a lot of different things. And also just, I think we're so used to segmenting human beings into categories and not just dealing with the whole human that's in front of you. And actually, but I just think there's got to be some use to me being such a weird dude and learning loads of weird topics and just being like, oh, actually I know something about that and something about that and something about that and something about this, and you know, maybe it's my ADHD, but like I've got to find a use for that, and that actually, like, hopefully it's pulling that together.
I don't know if I wouldn't blame that on like a mental condition, because I really do. Well, okay, somebody has made this claim before that actually ADHD would have been a survival mechanism.
Yeah.
Right. And if you look back at it historically, or maybe in the like, maybe in the anthropological kind of record, human beings have to be multidisciplinary, right? There's no specialty that can't exist in nature. You really do have to, and maybe narrow down to a specific environment. But even in that specific environment, the amount of knowledge and skills that you need to be able to just survive are kind of unreal. Like, you take just a normal hunter-gatherer society and the average skill set and ability and capability that a human being needs, it's absolutely unreal. I think we're so far removed from that, and we have all these beliefs that think that we've progressed, right? Like technology, and we imagine, and we're kind of incorrectly under the, I would say, influence of society to think that we are better than previous iterations of human beings. That's why we like make fun of cavemen, like, oh, don't be a Neanderthal, like they were some kind of fucking idiot. But in reality, in order to survive in nature, you kind of have to almost have a level of genius that in all things. And that's where I think like technology has really done us a disservice, because it's allowed us to specialize, and in specialization we can like make all of these individual subjects probably like more prolific, obviously development, medical, everything got quote unquote better, because I don't think that's necessarily true. Like, we're still just living, and I don't think there's any way that you can kind of measure the quality of life necessarily, other than, you know, we're not as sick, we don't die from the same things, but we're still literally dying, and we still have kind of like mundane existences. But that aside, I really think the specialization thing has allowed people to think that that's what it's about. So when people want to know, like, if you were like, I'm a doctor, they'd be like, what kind of doctor? And you'd be like, I only work on people's left side of their knee. And they'd be like, wow, crazy. And you could probably spend your whole life studying the left side of somebody's knee, and you'd have like you'd have a lot to say about it, and you would probably know a lot about it. And I think in that same sentence, you wouldn't know everything about it. And I don't think we're designed to know everything. But, and I had a hard time dealing with this coming as a coach, because I also was trying to be like, you know, really good at something. And I saw that the best coaches were like really good at a subject, like a sport or a discipline or a skill set, or they had something really niche to offer. And I saw that when you go to like, you know, professional team, and let's just say, like, I think when we're growing up, we think of sports as like the absolute, you know, look at an F1 team, those are the best of the best. There's 24 guys, 24 Formula One racers, and they're backed by a team of 100 to a couple hundred team members that are also they don't get any recognition, but the dude that designed the front lip to an F1 car is the best aerospace engineer that can exist. And that's how specialized everybody is. So you imagine yourself, okay, I got to like get really narrow and I got to get really good at something. And I never found that. I never was like really good at something.
Yeah.
And I regretted that for like a really long time.
Did you?
Yeah. Oh, so, and there's still inklings of it.
What about it?
That I was always led to believe that you're supposed to find your potential in one thing and see it through.
Where do you think that comes from?
Especially like insects.
Yeah.
Right. Like we treat human beings like insects. No, you're supposed to do this one job. It's like it's a byproduct of industrial revolution. Right. Convincing somebody that they just do one thing repeatedly helps the overall collective at the sacrifice of the individual. And that was really good for societies breaking through the industrial revolution. But we've kept that mentality and we've moved to a place where I think that you see it where people are like starting to go, I actually can't specialize. It's dangerous to specialize. So if I spent my entire life only learning like JavaScript, and I was just like or an HTML person or whatever, and you show up today and right now you're still good, but in 5 years your job doesn't exist and your whole identity implodes, yada yada yada. Same thing with like sport. If you just like make it to the top echelon of whatever specific sport or coaching a specific sport, I think that's rewarded in our society. You're the Massey or the Jordan or the whatever of your sport. And so when it was very clear at like I got started pretty late into like development, but it was clear that I wasn't going to be like the best at something. And for a long time I was like, oh well, that means I'm not worth what these other specialists would be worth. What I didn't realize is that by not being the best at something, it opened a bigger fascination, which was the ability to see between things. Because I could mess with something and get good enough to understand it, and then immediately go to another thing and get good enough to understand it. And then what happened over the course of 10 to 15 years is these things started to like mesh. And this is exactly what somebody like Charlie Munger would describe as a multidisciplinary. And he said, there's a really big drawback. There's a huge negative consequence to specialization. It means you can't see outside of it. And I think we see this. Like, take any subject, any of them, and take the most controversial ones. Especially in the political sphere, but you could take the pandemic. You could take the pandemic and think about how many different subject experts there are in a given thing, and how it just didn't work because there was no multidisciplinary to like draw the connections. So you had somebody saying, no, I'm an epidemiologist, this is true. And it comes back to, I think, the parable of like, all the blind guys feeling the elephant or whatever, and one has the tail and the other one has like the tusk. And you're like, that is kind of what we found ourselves in the time that we needed somebody to be like, yo, I'm looking from I can't feel it, I can't touch it. It's a fucking elephant. You're like, this is the problem. And now I see that my actual gift in coaching is to see between things. Not even really far between them. I backed up far enough that I can see the link between kind of how you train and your behavior and how you think and your lifestyle stuff. It all just like opened up. And for years it was just like, do you want to specialize in diet? No, I don't want to specialize in diet. Like, I don't want to like be a macro guy, or I don't want to tell people how to get lean. I don't want that to be my shtick. So, and I allowed that to, draw back and just be like, at first it was just like, I don't care enough to know the details of certain things. But in reality, I think it was like knowing just enough detail to make a better picture. So now when I look at coaching, and we joked about this a little bit, so I'll probably like say it multiple times, is like, we do make the joke that somebody, like, if therapy worked, it would be called coaching. Because to me, a coach is somebody who guides somebody from one thing to the next.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, it's interesting because I have friends in the therapy and the coaching world, and I'm doing my diploma in coaching, and they use like ICF accreditations and stuff. So there's groups of people that have very distinct categorization for some of this stuff. So often with therapy, and don't mean to offend any therapist, but how it's portrayed has been portrayed to me as therapy is about observing the past to affect the present, and coaching is very much about looking to the future to affect the present. So where do you want to go? How do you want to get there? And coaches tend to be more future focused. I certainly am. I had a conversation with my therapist, and she was like, and I said something, and she was like, "That's why you're supposed to be a coach." Because I was relaying a client, and I was saying all I wanted to do was jump in and kind of asking questions about where they want to go and how they want to get there. And she's like, "All I want to do is ask what happened in your past to make you make that decision now." And it was kind of interesting to hear that. But there's also, that doing the ICF accredited stuff, that things like mentors, which we all know as part of our vernacular, but I never really heard it in a formal setting of like this is what a mentor is, or a consultant, which I think consultant is an interesting one, because I think a lot of people often think consultancy is coaching. I'm going to go to someone, they're going to tell me what I need to do to get my result. And if that's what you want from a coach, actually you want a consultant. Or if you're a coach and you want to do that, because that's one of the other things I've seen a lot of coaches kind of be like, I want to step in and tell this person that they're great, and I think they need to do all this kind of stuff. And actually, from my perspective, the way I look at coaching is, and actually love asking questions. I think that's why I like podcasting. Like, I find people fascinating. So a lot of the coaching that I do is client centric, and it's a lot question based. So asking them stuff. And getting to the root of where they want to go and what's going on for them. And I mean, it's kind of, I find it fascinating, and different styles of questions and types of questions. And that's something that you kind of build as a muscle and a skill. But I think it's the same no matter which domain, because there's lots of coaches that I'm studying with and learning with and I work with that are like, I want to do business coaching. And I'm like, cool. And you can apply all these techniques to business, to fitness, to whatever you like, life coaching. They're just skills and tools, and the application I think is down to the coach.
And you see it as like, just to back, because I think that's fascinating that you see like the difference between kind of a vocation is which way you analyze the, I would say, let's call it increase in performance, but not to sound like it's big, but I really do think therapists are trying to get like a human being to perform better as a human being. Yeah,
I'd agree. And I think just to touch on that, I don't think it matters too much. The labeling comes so that you can identify with the person you want to go to work with. But yeah, I don't think it really matters. And you can, like, I know a good friend of ours, he's a therapist and a coach, and he kind of wants to use both modalities. And it doesn't really matter because he's great at it and he's just got a skill set. Someone comes to him and it's like, well, they're talking about the past, the present, the future. He'll be able to assist them. And I think that's the kind of key, is like, find someone that you want to work with that suits where you're trying to get to and work. Like, because I'm pretty confident that you've had this as well, but I've had people that I'm like, I'm not a good fit for you for what you want to try and work on or achieve.
For sure, yeah. We don't mesh.
Yeah, and I think that's more important than whether I'm a coach or a therapist or whatever. If I'm able to help you with the problem you're trying to solve, and I'm a good fit for you as a energetically or as a person, I think that's more important than exactly what qualification you have, unless obviously you're dealing with something really sensitive as a topic from a therapy perspective.
I'd even go for, I will push hard on that.
Yeah,
because I think we've been okay. We've all had a human experience. Now,
I'm trying to
differing levels of human experience.
Yeah,
and yet I have a real problem telling another person, or maybe needing another person to tell me that I'm okay to do something. If you back up far enough, at some point, a human didn't need permission. They just did it.
Yeah.
Now, I agree that there's like, well, should you do open heart surgery? I was like, if I did, I would make sure I was qualified to give that advice or do that action.
For sure.
And I don't think somebody passing me off is a qualification, actually. I think like me feeling certain in what I do is the qualification. Now, people could like infer that this is irresponsible or whatever, but when it comes to therapy, I would say like the subject of psychology is such garbage in most cases.
Do you think?
Yeah, I really think it's a pseudoscience.
What leads you to that?
Based off of like, I don't know, the godfather of it was basically just a wild cokehead who came up with like insane theories that are not necessarily true. It's a nice narrative. It's a nice story. Like, okay, take this for instance. Like when you say like, we've been giving people psychoactive drugs in the pharmaceutical realm that are approved by the FDA in the U.S. to modify serotonin reuptake and powerful psychotropic drugs that absolutely are minimally working. And we know that they're like even the like best studies show that they just barely pass the 2% efficacy. That was like in the 80s, and they really do think that it's dropped since then because the perception in the 80s of a public about what medication could do was stronger. So there's actually just stronger inference from the placebo. So fast forward, and this is like, man, that you remember, maybe you didn't see it, Tom Cruise was being like kind of like hounded by I can't remember the reporter's name, but like a famous like reporter who I think later got in trouble for something, but he's like getting hounded because Tom Cruise came out and said some things about, you know, he really like condemned somebody turning to like antidepressants after, I think it was postpartum, if I remember correctly. Don't remember who it was, but it was like another famous person. He said, man, and I don't think he was trying to be a dick. I think he was like really concerned. Like, I don't think they should do that. I don't think that postpartum requires antidepressants. That's not how it works. So they pulled him on basically this, you know, it's what they do. They like, let's just humiliate Tom Cruise, the celebrity, because he's not a qualified human being. And they really just tried to like narrow, but you don't know anything. You don't have a degree. You don't have this. And he stopped him every time he goes, stop. This is not how I'm talking about these drugs. We do not know what these drugs do. We don't know what they do. We know that they're affecting something, but they have not been studied enough to know that they have a positive outlook. And we're really this is a wild experiment. It's all he came back with. He's like, but we need to talk about, and this dated better than, like, I'll have you go back and watch this just so you can have this as a frame of reference. This dated beautifully because he's like, we need to talk about how much sunlight she's getting. And everybody was like, what a whack job. We need to talk about the kind of food she's eating. And people were freaking out. That's insane that you think that food influences your psychology, right? If you go to modern psychology, they don't infer that light, sound, that kind of stuff is even worth worrying about.
Yeah, definitely.
In the mainstream. Now, I know a lot of therapists. We have a lot here, and I'm going to say that there's obviously good people doing good work. But as a profession and a vocation, I lose a lot of respect for it because I do think they base things on pseudoscience, things that have not been proved. In instance, that back to that like interview with Tom Cruise. He made this claim, and it's funny because he made it, and everybody kind of like, well, that can't be right, right? They just assumed that he was lying, and then but if he was lying, he would have been canceled. And he made the claim that there's no such thing as bad brain chemistry. That's not a thing. And so when you say, oh, I have a chemical imbalance that I need to fix, that's not how it works. We know that's not how it works. Everybody has known that's not how it works since the 50s, that the chain of hormones and neurotransmitters do not work like how we think that they work, that you don't just like supply. It's the same reason that you like, otherwise everybody just take testosterone. You're like, but that's not how it works. You don't just take one and you're good. It's a chain reaction, and if you don't alleviate the thing that is causing the shift in neurochemistry, then you will never fix it because it's just a backlash. So it's not that I don't think that people need help. It's that I think we've designated an authority to maybe offset our responsibility for our own well-being categorically into quote unquote therapy. And the reason I would say that is because like therapy does work though, but I don't think it works for the reasons that people think that it works. Like you mentioned, you're like, you've said this multiple times, like, I go to my therapist to like talk to them and
Yeah.
right. Did you ever see the documentary that Jonah Hill did, Stutz?
No.
Ah, man. Okay. Great, because he's kind of like an iconoclast in the therapy realm, right? He's doing things very differently, and Jonah wanted to make this documentary about him because he recognized like that, dude, I've been to a bunch of therapists. This is not how they treat people, and he's like, going to him, he changed my life. So here's the whole premise of how it goes. This guy will stay, and he's a wild character, like. He reminds me of Ra from Human Design, which we can't do, but definitely like outspoken, very charismatic. And he basically goes, look, I was trained as, a psychologist, and we were taught that you listen to people and you don't give them advice. You just give them a place where they can soundboard off of you. And then these people come to you, they pay $300 an hour, and then they go to their friends and their friends give them advice. And it's like, I think it's the opposite. I'm an unbiased professional who can look at your life situation and I can give you really good advice, and I'm educated not to do that. He's like, your friends are who should listen to you. You're paying me $300 an hour for good advice. And so he really made that shift to be like, this is what I think therapy could be. And that's why I say if therapy worked, it's coaching, because the advice problem is like, I see your problem. Here's how I think you should address it.
Yeah, I think I've said this quite a lot on the trip, like a yes and situation here.
Totally.
Like I think that both can be true. Like I know amazing therapists who do great work, and there's so many different modalities to therapy as well, like in different tools. And I think that's all it is. It's a tooling thing. Like I'm not sure that I think there are lots of humans that have either more experience than you or greater knowledge than you that can help you with something. Yeah. But sometimes it is just giving you a space to be able to talk and share your experiences with someone that isn't gonna, because ideally your friends are the people you go to and talk to, and Simon Sinek's doing quite a lot. He's writing a book about friendship at the moment, which is really interesting. The fact that he's like, we have all these self-help books, but we have nothing about how to be a good friend, and he's got a point to a degree, but at the same time your friends are not objective, so sometimes when you tell them stuff, they're not going to be like, they have a vested interest. And
they're selfish too. Like they want you to be who they want you to be.
Sometimes, yeah. Like I think I think that's the definition of a good friend: sure. The person who allows you to be you and likes you, like because of it, not in spite of it. But with therapy, like I do know some people who've gone through some really challenging stuff, and they didn't, they needed some medication, and they got to the place where they could diet and sunlight and stuff, but they were like on the precipice, and if they didn't have the medication, then so I think it's all valid. I think the thing that I get really concerned about is that it is, people will hear some of the stuff you said and be like, oh no, it's not that, and it's like, because they believe in the other thing, and it's like it's all of these things together. It's not either or. It's like finding the right tool and the set of circumstances and the right person that's going to assist you the best. And that could be a coach, a therapist. It could be your next door neighbor, or do you know what I mean? Your barber. You go to him and you're like, go for your haircut, and he just listens to your problems. And you're like, I feel loads better. Maybe it's your barber. But I think one of the reasons I feel like coaching and therapy or any modality, whoever you're seeing, or some of the people I've described already, is important, is more so now than ever, is because we have less spaces where we actually truly communicate with another human being. Even gyms, I think gyms have become way more transactional than they used to be. So when we first met, and when I first started training in CrossFit gyms and stuff, you used to go, you didn't feel like you were in a rush, you kind of sit around, you talk, and I feel like that happens less and less these days. I feel like more, it's kind of like you go in, 45-minute class, get them out, get the next class in. It feels like more and more transactional in that regard.
I mean, to be fair, that's what therapy felt like when I went to it.
Really?
Yeah, and it's like, and it's not like she wasn't.
It's like time's up.
Yeah, for real. And she was like, actually, I've known her for a long time. She's a great therapist. She was like, there was like quite literally like, but it was transactional, and it's like, well, it's a space problem. Like I have other things to do, and now this has ended. I agree with you that, man, and we'll get into the gym thing because I think it's really important. But there are these like spaces that don't exist, like you're talking about.
Yeah, like the church used to be a big one, right? Yeah. Like, and I'm not particularly religious,
Yeah.
but I see the value of having a community
100%.
gathering place where
Yeah.
there's shared values and people are there for each other. You know, obviously there's been some sort of people have taken it to extremes as we naturally do as human beings, like with things like that. But I totally, as I get older, I see more and more appreciation for that. And you know, social clubs and even the pub, like the UK pub is like dying at the moment. Like they're closing faster than anything else. Like
What did Chris Williamson say? He said a nightclub a week is shutting down. in the UK.
but old fashioned pubs as well. Because I
Yeah.
don't know, obviously. In America, you have like bars and stuff. You don't really have like
It's not the same. Not
the old
the same
English
thing,
pub,
yeah.
like they used to be called public houses. So basically, what it was is someone's house, and they got an alcohol license, and they would sell alcohol in their house.
Yeah.
So you basically go to someone's house and gather and chat, and you get served alcohol, and then they turned into like a formal setting, and you had like the landlord and the pub, and they're all closing down in the UK because I mean, like, I don't drink.
Yeah.
And I don't really like alcohol, but I like it's really weird. It like breaks my head, the pub, a little bit, because I love going to an old pub in the winter with a fire, get a roast. I love it. It's like my favorite thing. But I don't like drinking and I don't like booze, which is weird because my grandfather was a publican.
Yeah.
So, but I feel like pubs are. It's kind of a weird thing. Like we're kind of losing that essence.
It is, but don't you think like we're always just trying to like come up with facsimiles for sitting around a fire talking?
Yeah.
Right,
Well,
like,
that's exactly what it is.
How
right?
you just
Yeah,
said it before you even said it, I was like, it just seems like their ancient practice was like, you know, feasting, talking, chatting. In the Aboriginal tradition, it's like sand talk. You know, it's like where they're expressing the lineage of their people. They're transmitting story. They're teaching lessons. I think that exchange, that human exchange, and this is why I think it's kind of funny because we have like all of these different terms, all of these different specialties, and yet people are remarkably living poor existences. Now, yes, it's true we like die less of disease, but I think it's pretty easy to disqualify that like the existence now is not connected to society. You don't feel connected to other people. And that's the one thing that like indigenous human beings have, or like this connection with one another. You know, you are a part of something. And that has really shifted towards the individual. And I think maybe a lot of this is just the side effect of that.
Definitely.
Like we're all very individual. We you know, work alone. We live alone. We travel alone. All of these things make us like kind of independent.
We don't really need other people because of that, because of, you know, all the other stuff we have, all the technology. And but back, like when you're talking, they needed each other because otherwise they weren't going to be able to hunt. Like apparently, I'm going to butcher this, but apparently one of the reasons we've evolved like we have is because we've had the endurance to be able to, in a group of people, we obviously are not as fast as like most animals, but we have the endurance to, as a collective group, run up, chase them down and hunt. And that's the only reason we've kind of like evolved to this point. And we're kind of now all disconnected, you know, the great line that everyone's talking about at the moment, we're most connected we've ever been because of technology, but we're so disconnected from each other.
It is like it's kind of like a, you know, universal jest about it that it is kind of, you know, irony at its best, is that now at any point I can get a hold of you, but I can't connect with you. And that is a really interesting part. I mean, like obviously I've kept up on what you're doing, but it's different when you're in person and you're like, you know, going on a hike together, or you exchange ideas at such a different rate. And to be fair, I think, you know, what I would blame it on is it's unscalable. Right? Like, and that's what we've really tried to do with social media, is scale friendship. And you missed something. It's almost like saying like taking some like great dish that gets made by like, you know, a chef that understands, you know, flavor profiles, and just like putting the ingredients in something and being like, that's what it is, and then packaging it and multiplying it and sending it out, and then expecting that it's identical because you just put the same ingredients in it. And I think that's how we treat most things, and that's why we have a hard time. This is why we have a hard time identifying the word coach, right? Because we go, oh no, I know what you are. You do the ingredients of X, Y, and Z, and if you have X, Y, and Z, I know what that is.
We have to be an online coach now. Right? Like I'm not particularly good online. I appreciate it because you know, it means I can stay connected with people like yourself and other people around the world who, you know, I get on really well with. And even sometimes, you know, otherwise geography becomes your limiting factor, and you might not like any of the people that you are actually surrounded by, and then you can find some other people and kind of change the circumstance. Like,
say that louder for the people in the back.
yeah. But it's kind of cool because we've met so many people. Like, I've met so many people here this week that, you know, weren't here. You know, last time I was here, and they've traveled and, you know, connected to you through the internet, right? Like, and that's really cool. But it means that it gives and it takes in this. I think everything's like a duality now, like paradox. Everything I look at now, I'm like, this is such a paradox. Like, and every time when I see people arguing about it, I'm just like, you don't spot the paradox here. They're like, that's why I say the yes and both things are true. Like, that is, I think the human experience is just riddled with paradoxes. And this is one with social media. Like, I really appreciate it, but I find it so hard to actually connect with people on it. And I'm always, I kind of think it's really cool when people can. Like, I watch there's a couple of coaches who are really good at video stuff. And I'm like, oh, this is great. I feel really connected to them. And I've never met them before. And I'm just like, I feel like I'm much more of an in-person kind of person.
Do you think, I think the same as you. Like, I think we've talked about this before, because I used to be so adamantly against like the virtual coaching relationship. And to be fair, like, I don't coach people virtually very often. And if I do, I'm very adamant about describing the boundaries. It's for this and this and this, and that's about it.
I think boundaries are really important. I mean, that's probably why the therapy, like, they're like, this is the time.
It's boundaries.
Unfortunately, it's a boundary thing. But I wish it wasn't always. I wish, you know, and I try and some may say that I need to be better with some of my boundaries, but I always kind of like to try and add more value than just cut people. Like, if someone's really in need, they need that extra time.
Yeah, I would never, you know, and I wouldn't think about it like that. Like, I think you're right. I mean, maybe that comes down to the transactional thing, but I think really when you're a coach and you're invested in somebody, I don't think you see it as a time problem anymore.
No, I agree.
It becomes, in some cases, a sunk cost fallacy, right? Where you're like, man, I've just been with this person and seen them through some stuff, so I'm going to stick with it. But in others, it kind of like moves beyond that, right? It transcends transaction, and it becomes more about just being a part. You get just as much reward out of seeing somebody develop.
Dude,
that's
like,
where most people miss it, I think.
I mean, that's like the reason I do it.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing. That's the thing for me. Like, it's just trying.
What do you think that is? Potential. Like, what is it about somebody else doing something that gives you like that sensation?
I don't know. It's a great question. I've never really been able to pinpoint it. Do you know what I will say is I don't really understand people who want others to fail, and never really have. Like, I understand. Look, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to be like play. Virtuously that, like, I never get jealous, and I've never experienced envy. I obviously have, but I've never really wanted anyone to lose. Like, sometimes I'm a bit like, I wish I had that, and if I do, then often it's a signal to be like, okay, cool, that's something I need to work on and we'll work towards. But I never get like, I wouldn't ever follow anyone on social media just to be like, good, they lost. Like, I just can never understand that, and like going into comment section and being like shitting on someone. I'm like, I genuinely can't understand that. And for me, I just want to see people win, and especially if I see someone who has immense potential and like isn't aware of it. Like, they're my favorite people to kind of be around and talk to in some regards. Like, not entirely. Like, I love talking to people who really challenge my thinking, because I'm like, oh, like that's kind of something else that I get a real rush from is kind of learning and learning new things. And, you know, myself and you end up going down 30 million wormholes over coffee.
It's like a lot of people here, they're like, I think they have a hard time understanding when I enjoy certain people here who are off kilter a little bit.
Yeah.
And they're like, why would you ever like talk to that person? I was like, because they challenge so much about what I just naturally arrive at.
Yeah.
And I'm curious as to like, I don't think it's dangerous to hang out with people that are different. You can always acknowledge that they're different and you're just different. That's it.
Yeah.
But I think it's really healthy to be exposed to, much in the same way, to be exposed to different levels of comfort. Like, if you're only ever in a 72-degree room, you're like, man, the second anything shifts, you become really irritable. And I think when I look out at people in general and I see how quickly they become irritable, it's because they've nestled their ideas so closely that they're homogenized. So everybody that's around them is what they call the bubble or whatever. And I think that is really dangerous. Yeah. Now, I'm not, I'm not exactly like looking for new beliefs, but man, when somebody mentions something and the first thing that goes off in my head, and this is like real, a friend will be like, I'm doing this. I'm like, you're a fucking idiot. Like, it's like and as soon as I get that, I go, hold on a second. This person is not dumb. They're they're an intelligent human being. My first thing is like, what in their experience is making them think like this?
Yeah.
And if I can understand it, that's such a different way. I don't have to replicate the behavior, but if I can understand it, it lets me know more about human behavior, which influences my profession profoundly.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it took me a long time to kind of get to a point where I was, just because I'm so curious and I do a lot of like reading and try and learn as much about certain stuff. There's certain things that if someone comes to me, like I've got friends in animation, and whenever they talk, I'm like, I have nothing to, apart from being like, this is what I like the look of, I have nothing to contribute to that because they know way more on the subject than me. So I tend to just ask them lots of questions. Defer,
yeah.
But like, I don't know, I worked in the phone industry, as for a long time. So people talk to me about phones and I'm just like, I find it very hard in those situations because I literally became, I would say, an expert in that field.
Yeah.
Which I don't use that term very often because I don't think I'm an expert in anything, as the earlier part of this conversation will dictate, right? I'm very much a generalist in everything. I always joke that I've got enough information to be dangerous. But that arena is somewhere I feel immensely confident talking to people about because I did it for 10 years and had to do it on camera and all this kind of stuff. So I knew my shit. And people would come to me and, because everyone has a phone, they had an opinion on it and I'd be like, biting my lip and stuff, and it took me a long time to get to a point where I was really interested in what other people had to say in subjects that I felt like I knew quite a lot
I think iPhone 6 was the best phone
that
ever
existed. exactly and I'm just like working for a brand at the time that wasn't necessarily the number one as well, and then we'd bring out this technology really early and then someone went, see what Apple brought out, and you're like oh, guess where they got it from?
Yeah, for sure. It's like an arms race. It's really
but then then I kind of got to a point where I left the industry and stuff, and I realized how ridiculous that was. Like, why did I even care?
Yeah.
Like now, technology facilitates what I actually care about, and I don't really care what phone. Like, I used to care so much about like what phone you had. Like when I see people arguing about Android and iOS,
you get it.
I'm just like, why? But I used to be one of those people, and now okay. This is why I use this. I think it's great.
This is perfect.
If you want to use something else, that's cool.
I used to also care so much about how somebody exercised. Right? It was either
same,
wrong
actually.
or it was right. Yeah. And I think that this is like a very novice approach.
Do you?
Yeah, I think you're in the middle of understanding.
Can I ask a question on that then? Because we sort of started the conversation talking about specialization versus. So do you think it's a novice thing or do you think it's a specialization thing?
I think it's a novice thing.
Do you?
Yeah.
Because there are some people that specialize in certain things and like that's their thing. Like,
okay, so get as specific as you can with kind of like a physical outcome or a competition. Like, it could be, what is it? What would be the most specialized sport that you could think of that would take like specific training in an event? Like, you're talking like, I don't, something in the Olympics, weightlifting, something like that.
Yeah, or like javelin came to mind.
Something like that. Throwing, something like that, where you're like the pattern
or pole vault.
Right.
But there's not many other things. I mean, there are like other things that will carry over, but there's quite a specialized thing. No one's running around with pole vaults in gyms.
Exactly. Yeah, it's not. Yeah, it doesn't like it's not a byproduct of something.
Someone's got
else.
a PVC pipe.
Totally.
trying to get over a.
Now think about off the top of your head, without being an expert in that, and I'm not at track and field or anything like that.
Same.
Knowing physiology, though, man, there's 1,000 different ways you could do it.
Yeah.
Right? Like just knowing how a human being responds to stress.
Yeah.
There isn't one program. So even if you get hyper specific, the novel approach is I would say the novice approach is that you think that there's only one way.
Yeah, I actually, now we've been talking about that, tend to agree. And I think that actually what's interesting is that you can broaden everything out, really, just thinking about that more. Like, I don't know, where was I going with that? You know, when you have a train of thought and you're like, and then my idea kind of like straight away.
Just gone.
Yeah.
Ejects.
But I actually really agree with you, because I think it comes back to what I was talking about tools. Yeah. I think people who train a certain way, that's the tools that they're familiar with, and they know it works because they're experienced. And as you become spend more time, become more experienced, you have more tools and more ways of doing things, and you've experimented with them more. So you know, actually for this person, this exercise is probably going to be really beneficial. But for that person, then it's not based on.
I look at it like this: like when you're a good painter, right? And I mean good, like you can actually create the image that you see in your mind onto a canvas or whatever, in the most general sense. The I guess the further you get down the line, right, you would understand the kind of hair that your brush has, and the kind of the makeup of the paint, and the chemical procedure of drying it, and maybe the way that it layers and mixes, and the difference between oil and acrylic. All of these things you would start to understand that, and the public would consider you an expert. And I see there's a point where we align these things, and we think that they're just true because it runs into this point that we recognize what a painting is. But there's a point that happens in almost any mastery where the brush becomes irrelevant, that the paint becomes irrelevant. Like all of the things that you're talking about or a tool actually start to block you, right? They become the actually thing that gets in the way.
It becomes constrictive.
Right.
Being able to look at it. And
that's because we identified that it has to be a painting. And I think this is very abstract, but this is like, take the pole vaulter, javelin thrower, whatever it is. Now, when you say they have to be ready in, the next Olympic Games, they've got 4 years to prepare, they have this kind of background, and you might look at it, I think the novice looks at it like, oh man, on Monday they're doing this, and then on Wednesday they're doing this, and that's going to be like that for 4 years because somebody looked at it and said that this is where you peak. Now, I'm not saying that you can't do that. I just say that's like a very amateur approach, actually.
You think?
Is to because it doesn't consider a reaction from the canvas. That's the masterful approach. Once you do this long enough, would look at it and be like, I don't even know what we're doing tomorrow because I don't know how they're responding from today. And biology and behavior is so chaotic. You can't predict it, right? You've heard of the 3-body problem. You enter more than like 3 variables and you have chaos. So therefore, the masterful approach is to like understand the technique and the skills and the tools, and then apply those or use them in a way that manipulates the situation of the thing that you see in your mind in the moment, on the day. Yeah,
I kind of think that in that scenario, maybe having like a blueprint, but you can flex it is kind of like the approach. Because I think like you I don't know, maybe I have to reach out to some pole vault or javelin coaches and be like, what's your thing? But I do think that they probably have a structure to their training because they, done it so many times, but then modifying based on the person, the outcome, the stimulus.
Take that, like, how many different javelin throwers have won that, and how many different coaches have approached it, and what do they all look like? Now, they're all going to have themes, right? Same thing, we're talking about like painting or like coaching, you're like, they're going to have color involved. There's going to be some major things that you just like can't get rid of because it's a part of the subject. It's basically this is like where I think coaching gets really beautiful, is that you think about the invariance first. What is absolutely required before it's not a coaching experience. So the invariant tells me that it's required. Everything else is a variable, which means I can or can't use it as long as it adds or takes away.
I agree. I mean, that's one of the, sometimes, like I appreciate everyone who, there are some masterful programmers out there when it comes to movement and sports and training, but I do sometimes struggle with the amount of like weight someone puts into a program, because we're not like cars. It's not like and even good mechanics sometimes get a car and it's got a completely different problem to the car they worked on before. Humans have so many more variables that you kind of can't really approach it being like, here's my program, this is going to work for you, because it's not necessarily as cut and dry as that.
Use the car example because this is fucking great. But take like an F1 car, right? They build this thing, they blueprint it. You have, again, like we said, the world's most absolute experts in, you know, aerodynamics and fluid dynamics and like everything that would go into the design of a car. And they blueprint these things and they spend hundreds of millions of dollars in the design, and then it comes out, and what happens for 2 years because Mercedes blueprints kind of sucked and their car was garbage, right? They had very low performance. You're talking the blueprints didn't align, and they weren't able to actually, and this is what I would say, the rigidity of the plan did not allow for any tolerance in changing or shifting ideas, which made it a low performance. And in most things, if we use the car analogy, like in coaching a human being, imagine a car that you're designing that, you know, you spend an hour on a day, and then it spends 23 hours being used by random people and interacting in situations that you couldn't possibly imagine. And you get it back and you're like, why is that broken? Why is this thing like that? Why? Yeah. And it's because a person comes and trains with you, but then they're not in a vacuum. They go and they live their normal life. They have their normal stress. They eat their normal food, and they, you know, go out at night, and they have these interactions that absolutely influence the performance. There's no program that considers that. There's like 10 sets of 10 on Monday, and then you know, on Tuesday you're like, well, that person had an argument with their friend, and the system isn't the same.
And you know, we're all different, so one person might have an argument with their friend and it's like not a problem because they deal with that kind of stress really well, and then someone else might have it and it wrecks them for a week.
Why does this work better? It got into an accident. You're sometimes that's chaos, you know, to some degree. And I think what I really like about coaching is you're really like accepting that I'm stepping into chaos. It's kind of like the most masculine thing you can do, because here's the truth about chaos is that is where chaos is the function of creativity. You have to have disorganization to make something of it, right? If everything's already ordered, why touch it?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I'm not a neurodivergent specialist or anything like that. So when I talk about ADHD, it's not from a place of insane experience, but I've done some reading, as you can imagine. But it's interesting because I think that a lot of people with, you know, an ADHD brain, because the ADHD brain is constantly seeking stimulus, they kind of attracted to the chaos, and sometimes even manufacture it because they're like, I need to have like some of that. So, you know, I think that's where, because it's not necessarily that people with ADHD are more creative than others. I think it's just that, again, that, like you say, that's where the chaos, and then it breeds that creativity off the back of it, because they're seeking it out constantly. So it's interesting. I think that's, you know, I've certainly feel like neurodivergent spaces, you tend to see a lot of coaches. I mean, I've met a lot. I've met a lot of people who are neurodivergent who are in coaching spaces, which is kind of interesting.
So my question would be like, why do you think that is? I mean, other than the chaos thing, like what?
I think there's a few variables. Like one, there's a few different things. Like they've all got names like RSD, which is rejection sensitivity dysphoria. I certainly have experienced that a lot in my life. Actually, I haven't really talked about my neurodivergence all that much. It's kind of something that I've kind of steered away from because.
Do you not like talking about it, or is it?
I don't mind talking about it. I talk about it with friends. I just haven't really spoken about it publicly outside of that. Mainly because.
I mean, it's super interesting. Like, do you think, and when you heard the diagnosis, were you like, oh yeah, that's dead on?
Not entirely. Yes and no.
Okay.
So I was diagnosed with dyslexia when I was really young. Yeah. And that's like, it's fucking obvious if you read my handwriting or what, like, you know, read anything I've spelt.
Yeah.
People are like, what's this mean?
You tried.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, did you know you've missed an apostrophe? I like, yeah, dude. Yeah. I'm like, it's not my thing. But I got diagnosed with ADHD, and a lot of it tracked. I actually think that there might be some overlap. I haven't gone and got it diagnosed, but there's something called ADHD, which is they call it comorbidities, which is such a lovely term. You know, like oh yeah, great, you've got a comorbidity, but that's what they call it when you have multiple neurodivergence. So I have a thing. I think that there might be some autistic. I certainly have some autistic traits. I don't know how much it is, and you know, I'm certainly.
Well, it's a spectrum, right?
I used to feel really guilty because I'm hyperverbal to a degree. In certain settings, I'm quite quiet in others. But like I was listening to a lot of people who you know are non-verbal.
Yeah.
And I always feel guilty because I'm like, I don't want to really, you know, claim that I am without a diagnosis, because there are people who have a lot more severe stuff. One of the things I saw though is, you know, like a mixing desk for audio.
Yeah.
Because I used to think of it as a spectrum. It's like 0 to 10.
No. It's like
verbal. You're either up at the bottom or you're in the middle or something like this.
Yeah.
Eye contact as well.
Yeah.
But that kind of made more sense because there's some things that like I wasn't typically hyperactive. I'm not like a really hyperactive person, like bouncing off the walls. Most of mine's mental, but also it's kind of mellowed out a little bit by the fact that I'm a little bit standoffish because of other things. So, but I think going back to your original question, I think stuff like RSD plays a big role because rejection sensitivity dysphoria, people with ADHD are much more sensitive to rejection, and actually because of their neurodivergence, because the difference, it kind of gets sensed, so they can be more what's the phraseology here, likely to get bullied younger ages, again because of difference, because they're a bit kind of awkward in certain situations and stuff, and people pick up on that. So because not only do they struggle in, I try not to talk in absolutes, but often can struggle in like school settings, you know, like not very good at spelling. Always, it was really funny when I did my GCSEs, did terribly in my English writing, but excelled in my English speaking. Which was kind of interesting. That's what, you know, then
they're two totally different parts of the brain.
For sure.
Yeah.
But guess what? When I got into a job where I got to talk for a living versus write for a living,
take off.
I did really well. Yeah. It's strange. But yeah, so you get reinforcement from teachers and caregivers that you're not very good at stuff.
Yeah.
And then also get bullied. And then your brain already has a hypervigilant, because it's basically your brain trying to keep you from danger. Like we all have that response, but someone with a neurodivergent brain, and that's kind of, it's very hotly debated. So again, not saying this is true, but the theory that the caveman kind of stuff, like our primitive brain, you know, where
was more neurodivergent.
Yeah, which there's a lot of discourse around that online, so I don't want to claim either way, because experts who are experts and like doctorates and stuff like that claim that it's not true. So who knows? But
it's kind of weird when this happens, because it's almost like no matter your level of expertise, you can't time travel.
Yeah.
Right. You're like, this is what I mean. Okay. I'll give you a totally off topic subject that really blew my mind, but it really like kind of narrows in on, I would say, what appears to be a hesitancy, because I instead of like saying that you basically want to tiptoe around people who say they know. That's really kind of like, I think, what we've been trained and conditioned to do. When in reality, you said it to begin with. It's yes and, right? Like multiple things can be true. You know, Adam Smith, you know, like basically the godfather of capitalism. Our entire system, our entire economic system is predicated on his concept, right?
I'm not familiar with them.
So okay. Actually. Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, I'll use it, Scottish fellow.
Okay.
But like, the Wealth of Nations was like this treatise, American founder essentially in capitalism.
Okay.
So the Wealth of Nations essentially set what we know about economics today as a solidified science, but it's 100% narrative. Anything that they claim, and if you open an economics book today, you'll read the monetary system was designed because when we were trading seashells, we needed to do this thing in exchange, and then we were like, well, Bob the baker wants to trade his bread to Fred the whatever, and we have this like totally ridiculous like situation where you're like, that makes sense, and everybody, it's like it is kind of like it's like common sense, right? You're like, yeah, that's probably how it happened, except it's not. There's absolutely no anthropological record of a monetary system arising out of the need to trade.
Really?
ever. That has never happened. Now, we can track that trade happened in certain aspects, but the need for it to happen is almost exclusively incorrect. We state that monies happened, like the exchange, the fiat, the currency happened. Fucking flying around my face.
We're in Utah and the flies
Yeah, there's
here
just
have
a
been
flies are
wild.
fucking crazy.
I've never seen flies like it.
It's kind of insane.
Yeah.
So there's like this need for money is the fiat currency thing. And then we go, and then, we needed to track it. So we came up with debt.
Okay.
That makes sense. Most
Yeah.
people are like, yeah, fuck yeah. That sounds like some smart dudes knew some shit. And I'm just like, and if you go today, Harvard Business School, you open it up, your first class on economics. This is the story that they tell, except that it absolutely goes against everything that we know about anthropology. So the experts are actually fucking 100% correct. I'm gonna get this guy. God damn, so close. It's like, it blows my mind. When I read this, it was like debt was actually what came first.
Really?
Debt is the original way to exchange with people.
Yeah,
it just makes total sense.
I get that.
And so when I hear it, what's interesting, to come back to kind of like how we think about what is true and what's not true, I think you really understand, like looking at different subjects, when you understand how little we know, especially about a topic like neurodivergence, how you explained it to, I think most people are like, you're either autistic or you're not.
Yeah.
And that they think the spectrum is this way. I was like, well, it shows how little, what we're really talking about, I think. And again, I'm not an expert either, but I just house them. Like,
I just get like, I'm sensitive about it because people's lived experiences, and I know how traumatic some people's lived experiences with these things can be. Like there's a lot of, one of the things that really triggers a lot of autistic people is someone being like, well, everyone's a little bit on the spectrum. And I understand why that is really challenging, because meltdowns and shutdowns are a real thing. And I think that, and there's lots of other challenges that come along with it. But like, if you've had a proper meltdown, which, I've had a couple, which was one of the signals that, might be something else going on. Like when I was a kid, they can be really challenging because you have like this out of body experience where you're sort of out of control, and then you have to live with the consequences when you kind of sort of come back to it. And the only way I can, this is just my experience. So again, if anyone's listening to this and it's not their lived experience, I want to be sensitive to that. But like, sometimes everyone's got drunk at one point and don't really remember the night, and then they get the text message or they get told the next day, you were a bit of a dick last night. You did this. Yeah. Like that's sometimes, like that's how I felt sometimes when I've had this thing where I kind of like, but instead of being told it, I got to kind of watch it from like a bird's eye view and not be able to like regain control. And luckily I've kind of like got some, I'm not a kid anymore, so I've got coping mechanisms and way of dealing with that. But like, it doesn't happen anymore really all that often. It has to take a lot. But like as a kid, I didn't have very much control over that.
It's fascinating to me because I think the sensitivity is really important, but also I think what I'm sensitive to is that I don't try to group. I think what we're trying to do as society is group things that are true. Again, the black and white, you're a coach, this is what you do. And or I'm describing your disposition in learning. As you mentioned dyslexia, I was like, that is such a weird term to me because of how many different forms you can take in information. But if you can't take information through the like written word, then you're this like weird person who doesn't deserve to learn in our schools. And you're like, in my head, and I'm not the most compassionate person in the world. I don't think anybody's like, I'm not guilty of being the most compassionate person in the world. But one of the things that I think is true is that human diversity is insane. And really cool. And the only part of it...
It's weird. I understand that we do it from an evolution point of view. It's like, if you're really different to me, I'm like, threat! Oh my God. Right. We're all looking for similar people so that we can be like, oh, cool, tribe. We haven't outgrown our kind of like, primitive kind of brain in some regards in that regard.
Totally.
But at the same time, again, back to what we were talking about, like, I like talking to people who challenge my thinking. I like people who are different to me because it'd be really boring if everyone was the same.
100%.
I like hanging out with people who have similar interests to me, but I love talking to people who have think differently to me.
Yeah, I need like common threads thrown in.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
in
If
reality,
they're talking about like a hobby that happens,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
that's what I mean. If they had similar
Yeah.
interests but different mindsets, I
Yeah.
really find that a fascinating combo.
what's weird is like our existence is only possible because of the vast amount of differences. Because if you imagine, each human being is kind of like a different trial,
Yeah.
right? It's like it's a different
yeah.
attempt at nature trying to find an answer to something. And what's funny is like what we know about the truth of nature is there is no answer, because the problem changes. Right. So I think that, not to bring human design into it, but this is something fundamentally interesting that he said back in the 90s. The guy, Ra, what he said is like, autism is not a disease. It's an adaptation. And he said that before, when you thought they really thought, and they were seeing extreme forms of it.
Yeah.
Now I think we have a lot more nuanced approach to neurodivergence and autism, because I think we have so many. Oh wow! Like there's no way to even map all of it. It's
Yeah, but one thing that's quite big in the neurodiverse conversation is that if you've met one person with autism or ADHD, you've met one person with autism or ADHD, because they're all so different, and the expression's so different, which makes it really challenging, because you might identify with stuff, and like that's what I mean. It gets really messy, because some people who maybe are, again, the terminology changes on this, but like mild in terms of their symptoms, versus someone who's has greater support needs. It's really challenging and really messy. But I did hear someone talk about this, and I really like this analogy. It's like we've all got different operating systems, and some people are all running on iOS.
Yes.
And it's great. They all can kind of work in iOS world, but have you ever tried to take stuff from iOS onto Windows? Not that, or Android into iOS. Not that easy. And that's kind of what I think like holistics and neurodivergence really struggle with, is that they're kind of like two operating systems trying to coexist sometimes. And we've got, that's a very simplistic way of putting it. And I think that comes into our broader conversation around coaching. Is that some of us are working on different operating systems and need different support and different ways of working and inputs.
Yeah, and I think when, it's a great analogy actually, and it should be like the hard part is that we should be trying to simplify only so that somebody can understand something. And I think this is where we miss the mark, because I'm not trying to simplify a person. I'm not trying to make them less than their of what they're made out of. I'm trying to translate an issue or a feeling or a sensation so that you can actually like have a normal conversation or you exchange information in some way.
Yeah,
and I think when that isn't the goal, that is the problem. Like when the goal isn't like clear communication and understanding, I think that is really where you run into any issue that you have. To be fair, some people don't want to understand. In fact, they try their hardest not to understand. People try to be hurt by things, and I think that should be acknowledged too, that like people have become very sensitive, because there is there's a I'm going to say a large part of the population that doesn't want to understand, that they want to be misrepresented, because then they can complain. It becomes their trauma, their plight. It reinforces this feeling of importance because they were misunderstood. And I think that's a societal disease to a very like large degree. When you watch two people exchange, you can see the person who is trying to comprehend and do their best to mitigate what's happening, because that should be the goal in living in a successful society. And you can often see the person who uses any kind of insult or inference as an aggression or as an insult or whatever you want to. And to be fair, this happened maybe a couple months ago. Just an interesting thing, and I had to like check myself for it, because I had a bunch of run-on assumptions. This is really wild, but somebody posted, this happens like all the time, so they post a video of Henry Cavill and he's like,
I see quite a lot of these.
Did he use steroids? And they send it to me, so I usually watch the video and then I fucking move along. And for whatever reason, the first fucking comment was this guy who was like, as a bodybuilder, I can tell you that he did.
Yeah.
And I was like, I can't resist.
I had one of these. In real life, which was weird. Someone telling me that, nice. I was like, well, I have some behind the scenes knowledge, and they just didn't want to hear it. I was like, okay, cool. I didn't even get to the point of talking about it, but it was.
Well, to be fair, I was like, as his coach for that exact movie, I can tell you that he wasn't. And I'm not trying to like defend it. I'm just telling you that like you have a misperception and an idea that isn't true.
Yeah.
And as a bodybuilder, you should understand that it's not that hard to be 10% body fat at 185 pounds.
Yeah.
That is not like outside the realm of reality. And so he came back and he was kind of aggressive, like right at the start. And that is what set my pitch for the next. Right. And I'm like, all right. So I like looked at it, and sure enough, he's like on stage, mid physique, like total garbage body, talking about how he uses testosterone. Obviously, it's not very effective. He's not very muscular. He's terribly like insecure looking, posing in some skivvies. And so I like, I didn't light him up in this next comment, but I just like, whatever, I'll leave it. He came back, funny enough, and I completely misread his message. 100% missed it. He was like, thanks for taking the time. It was essentially like, thanks for taking the time. But to me, my ear was already geared towards like confrontation. And so he was like, you know, he said something about thanks for taking the time. And I read it as like a total sarcastic whatever. And I like let him have it after that. And I had literally, and he was like, whoa, you're a dick. And I was like, what? And I was like, we're both being dicks. And I went back and read it. I was like, oh, I'm a dick.
Yeah, it's hard.
I just heard what I heard, and I like didn't want to understand anymore. I quit trying to communicate. I quit, and I was like, again, all these.
It's so easily done
helpful.
though. Something I was going to say is that like I'm very aware that I'm a human being and fallible, and I'm trying to take ideas, concepts, and feelings and emotions and convert them into words, either written or spoken. I tend to be slightly better at the spoken stuff, as I mentioned before, but that's inherently hard. Like sometimes you get a feeling and you might not even understand the feeling you have, and then you're like, someone's like, what's going on for you? And you're like, I'm going to say words and hope that something comes out that you can understand and is relative, which is, I think, is why we often try and kind of get like or ask the question, does that make sense? You know, or like those kind of questions, because we're
not
like
rhetorical, but kind of.
Yeah, we're trying to sense check of like, I explained what I'm like, have I sometimes managed to communicate? And then we're also trying to interpret at the same time when there's so many different messages and noise going on in our lives. It's, you know, so much coming at us that we're trying to interpret and then put back out. It's becomes really difficult. And I think also you were talking about people not always wanting to understand. You know, we have some base needs of needing to be seen and heard, and again, I think it pays into what we're talking about, the collective and the tribe, and having that kind of like, you know, people who really see you has become probably less, because they've got so many other people to look at. Like, how many people do you follow on Instagram? How many people do you see in a day that you're kind of like have a thought about or trying to?
It's like wildly different than what it was even like 100 years ago.
Yeah, like
right?
even our parents' generation, you know, they knew 10 people in their village. They went to, like, certainly where I grew up, like, you know, I know America's a bit bigger, but like 10 people in the village, they met at the pub, you know, they knew the same 10 people, they had a couple of people at work, and that was it. Like, and then obviously now our generation, we kind of, I've read this a few times, like Gen X, we're this kind of, I'm kind of
on the cusp.
On the cusp, yeah.
It's its own, I forget what they called it, but there is a specific denotion for people who are in between millennial and Gen X.
Yeah, because we need extra
or whatever.
But yeah, like we're this kind of bridging generation that where we're cognizant of before the internet and before technology, right? You know, like we kind of remember those dial-up phones where you had to like receivers and all this kind of stuff.
Fucking floppy disk.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm still lobbying for bringing back mini discs. I love that format. We didn't get long enough with the mini disc. Damn it. But like, you know, I don't know if this. I used to hear like old generations kind of pine after their childhoods, like, oh, it was better in the 60s or it was better in the 70s. I miss the 90s. Like, I watch like movies set in the 90s. We were talking about The Matrix the other day, or I watch a documentary that's set in the 90s, and I'm like, I kind of miss it. Like, we had enough internet where I could download music, sometimes illegally. It took 4.5 years.
Napster.
Yeah, exactly.
It did take a long time.
It took 4.5 years, and if my mum picked up the phone, it cut out because, you know, you run it off the same line. Yeah. But at the same time, I could go out and I could meet my friends, and we had to meet because we couldn't like text someone and be like, I'm not feeling it tonight, or pie someone off. And, you know, you actually got to really connect with people. Like, you went and talked to them, you hung out with them. Whereas now I feel like you kind of spend time with people, but you don't. don't always feel like I get like a real deep like I spend time and get to really know someone. I feel like most of my interactions with people are surface level these days.
I would agree with it. I also think that's why like seeking new environments really helps with that. Like it just putting yourself in a new situation, I think, takes off the habitual comfortability with it. And like traveling is a good way. Me and Aaron still meet so many people when we travel. And I think one of the reasons why it happens is because you're so uncomfortable. You're outside of the norm, and I'm not just like trying to get away into my phone or trying to like do the same thing every day. I agree with you. There's a lot of like, there's so many good things about growing up in the 90s, in the 80s. And like, I also think
the movies and music were better then as well.
So good.
As much as I like some modern music.
So good. I think the best thing that came out of the 90s was, and this is before that time too, of just like having to go somewhere and hope that your friends were there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Or like maybe you just like, I'm going to go to his house and just knock on the door.
Yeah, yeah.
There's something really special about,
Is
hey,
so-and-so
we'll meet
in?
at the mall here. And there wasn't a location. You never said where. And that, the reason I think it's important is because you went to a place where they kind of were, but then you had to look. Yeah. And now everything is so convenient that I think we get irritated and agitated so easily now because everything has been just so easy.
Yeah.
But there's something real, like the level of discomfort and the level of kind of like trying is reflective of the reward. If I have to like ride my bike for 30 minutes to the mall, I'm going to make sure that I'm going to have fun with my friends.
Yeah.
And now I can just be like, yeah, I'll see you there in 10. And then I can show up or eating or whatever. And I can be on my phone the whole time because it wasn't hard to do it.
Yeah.
And therefore I don't get anything out of it either. So our reward kind of like investment has really, really plummeted socially. I also think with coaching, not to like drag it back to this, but I think
I was actually thinking the same thing. Yeah,
when you can pay $25 a month to have like a coaching experience, or what, even $300, doesn't really matter. It's just fake money anyway. Just send it through the electronic little business thing, and then
try not to look at it.
wait for the person to email me about how much they care about my progress, and then I get this little like automation email that's like, welcome to your fitness journey or whatever, and then I might have a question about the fucking copy and pasted program that I'm on, but because we're so detached, I think that's special. Man, when you meet somebody who's really invested in you, it's a very different experience.
And it's going to pull it back to the question you asked me of like about the seeing people's potential and stuff. I think that's part of it for me is like what I want a deeper level of connection with someone and a coaching relationship, like a true coaching relationship where you really work with someone. Like I worked with one guy like I had a great we went through quite a lot of stuff together. It was like during COVID and I asked him for a testimonial recently, and he wrote me this really like I haven't put it out. I'm kind of figuring out what to do. But he wrote me this really lovely little.
How hard is it to ask somebody for a testimonial?
Yeah, it's pretty. Like I'm really not very good with like compliments at the best of times. Totally. Like I've had to program a little sentence into my brain to say, "Oh, thank you very much. I really appreciate it." Like, so if I say that to you, I'm really sorry, but it is completely scripted, and I find it very uncomfortable to be told that I'm good at anything or that complimented in any way. I'm working on it.
It's my Chat GPT response.
Yeah. I definitely didn't get it from ChatGPT. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. So, but he wrote me this really nice thing, and it kind of was like, one of the things he said was that I basically said to him, "Look, for where you're at now, I can't we can carry on working together, and you'll get more value out of it." But we don't need to work together. Like for what you came to me for, we've hit a point. Like to be honest, from a fitness perspective, just go do some CrossFit class. Like you'll get loads out of that, and then come back to me if you want to work on any specifics. We didn't just work on fitness, even though that's what you kind of came to me for. We kind of ended up delving into some really meaty topics. And to his credit, he really trusted me to kind of like go in on that stuff, and he also questioned me a lot, which I love. Like. I think, don't get me wrong, sometimes you get questioned, you're like, hey, I want you to get 10,000 steps. And someone's like, why? And you have to go down. And it's like, by now, it's like, come on, this is one thing that just everyone, ubiquitously, we kind of sort of agree you need to move for a certain amount of time. 10,000 steps is a pretty arbitrary number, but works for most people. But he would question me on everything, which sometimes I got frustrated by, but actually really loved, because it was like, I get to use my knowledge. You know, because like I said, I'm a voracious studier. I think it's probably comes from an unhealthy place of like, it's an addictive thing. You know, I don't do any substances. I don't drink. I don't have any kind of, you know, the traditional vices. But my thing is knowledge. I read, you know, a couple of books a month, and I probably listen to 3 podcasts a day. And during COVID, I was unemployed for 18 months, and I basically studied full time. Of like, I basically put myself through my own university.
Nice.
And during that time, I was a bit of a pain to be around, because I was kind of like constantly studying and practicing everything on myself. And anyone talked to me about a certain topic that I was studying, it was like basically got this weird Rain Man kind of like monologue, and they were like, "What just happened?"
Man, I feel bad, because that's essentially how I feel. Whatever topic I'm taking in, it's like all I'm taking in.
Yeah.
So anybody that interacts with me, that's the topic I'm gonna like be on.
Yeah.
Which is why I keep like mentioning it. Like, you can tell, I can go back and look at like podcasts that I've done through the past like 7 years, and just being like, oh, I was studying this. Oh, that's why.
I think podcasts are a great medium for that.
Yeah.
What I think sometimes happens, and I try and be really mindful of doing this myself, I see coaches who like find a new technique, and suddenly all of their members get this new technique, all like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and it's I understand testing it out with people,
totally,
and being, I always try and ask, I'll be like, hey, I've been learning about this thing.
Yeah.
Do you fancy, can we try some
it.
stuff?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know loads about it, but
Yeah.
I've got some ideas that we could incorporate this. And I try not to, like, if I'm learning about something, put that straight into my coaching right away.
Totally, yeah.
Because there's been some stuff I've been very wrong on.
It's a working experiment.
Yeah,
in some cases.
Maybe not very wrong, but I was a bit overzealous with how good something was right away, and not learning kind of where the boundaries were or how to flex it or stuff. You just kind of like dive people straight into it.
Yeah, I think to be fair, I kind of came from the opposite. I was like, I took everything that was validated and worked, and then just like doubled down on all of that stuff. And my breakthroughs had to come from opening up to accept things that might be different. Or
have you got any examples?
Yeah, like I mean, training wise, pretty straightforward. Like, if it wasn't like a set rep scheme that was found in Mel Siff's, schedule, or AC Prelopin's schedule. If it wasn't like a movement that the best in the world used to do their thing, it wouldn't be worth exploring. So I would never use anything that was it just like narrowed the focus, at least in like exercise selection. Same thing with diet. It was like I've tried a lot of nutritional interventions with myself, but when it came to advice that worked, it was like, this is what matters, this is what you need to do, and there wasn't much nuance to it. It's one of the reasons why I think Erin is better at nutrition, because she has so much nuance around her experience, but also being open to like, maybe that person was just, maybe their idea about nutrition is correct, their application is wrong, or something like that. And she's been able to like, even with like less technical information, at least at the beginning, get better results than I have, because I was so hard lined on this is how you do it, and that hard line doesn't work fair. Like, it really doesn't. Like, just thinking that the world works this way means you're unable to like make it work outside the boundaries that you think that it works. But in reality, like, the person who's really good at coaching can arrive at the objective no matter what the circumstances are. That's the reason to have a coach, in my case at least.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's weird because we're in the like niche era, I like to kind of call it, or niche. I'm not quite sure how we pronounce that. I say niche.
I go back and forth. I'm gonna fucking kill this one.
And I understand the point of having a niche, like, hey, these are the types of people I want to work with. Okay. Again, I'll go back to cars. If you're a mechanic and you work on exotic cars, like, you're not going to be like, someone brings you kind of like a family hatchback, you'd probably be like, hey, this is not my thing. And I think sometimes it's useful to have that, but within coaching, and don't get me wrong, I have certainly types of people I want to work with and things I want to work on from a coaching perspective. But I think a good coach is able to mold to the client's needs, and help kind of anyone. Although that being said, if I do, everyone ever reach out to me to work with me, and I'm like, this person's way better suited to work with you.
Sure,
I hand that
yeah.
off. I'm not someone who's going to be like, find a way, because, you know, I've set myself up where I don't, because this is something I really struggled with. And so I started my one-to-one coaching business during lockdown, and it failed. And that's why I was like, and I had another business on the side because I was like, didn't want to make money out of it. And I lost that business. That's why I was unemployed. And that's why I had to go back to tech. But I try and set myself up so I don't need to necessarily make money from coaching, because, you know, obviously I do need to make money from coaching, but I mean sole income, because
dependence on it.
Yeah, I don't want to, because, you know, when you do that, you do have to sort of kind of try and work with anyone, really. You don't get to be as choosy.
Do you think that's right?
How do you mean?
The assumption. I'm just asking because I'm rewriting. I said the same thing for a long time.
Okay.
That and I think a lot of what we're told is assumption about transactional relationships, and I don't believe it anymore. And in 2 degrees.
I just mean in the sense that I wouldn't want to be like, someone comes to me and I'm like, I'm not the best fit for you, but I'm going to do it anyway because I need the paycheck.
I totally get the dependency. I think one of the things that I think that unwinds, at least in my own experience, is that when I don't have to depend on it, I have lukewarm engagements. I know
what you mean.
It's almost the opposite effect.
I know what you mean.
I only take on work that I know will succeed, as opposed to I need it to succeed.
Yeah, it's less about that for me. Yeah. I'm pretty all in, sometimes to my own detriment with people, and it's that kind of thing of like, I want others to succeed, probably more so than I do myself, and I'm not entirely sure exactly where that comes from. I have some theories, but like, you know, a bit of a melding thing of some of the topics we've talked about already and things I've shared, but
it's probably like a daddy complex.
I have no idea. Like, I think it's something to like, some links to like neurodivergence and my you know, growing up and sports and all sorts of stuff, right? Yeah. Like, I've always been into team sports and more about the collective in that regard. And but so if I meet with someone that I think I can help, I will do everything in my power to do that, and I'm all in. But which kind of fun little like nod to your stuff. But if I don't think I can help them, or I don't think I'm the right fit, I just think that sometimes we won't meld. Like, you are, in my view, this is my view, and you know, every coach is different, but I kind of feel like we're a team. Yeah, like me and that person, like, we're a team. And if I can't, if I'm not the best teammate, if I, you know, I'm not, they're not going to gel with me. They're like, oh, I don't really like his vibe and stuff like that. I wouldn't want to force a relationship, because I think, you know, I talked about one of my clients before, but like, we got to know each other pretty well, and it brought us closer. Yeah. You know, like, we'd speak a lot more. You end up you speak to your clients more than you speak to like family members and stuff at times. You have to build like a close relationship with that person. You see them so much, like, you know, and I think if some people you just don't click with. There's like some friends you're just like,
different operating system.
Right.
Yeah. Which I think is important. It is really important. Not everybody can be everything to you. Mm-hmm. And in the coaching space, I did want to get this, because honestly, it seems like coaching is everywhere. It's everywhere. Everybody's a fucking coach. Everybody, for every little thing. And yet, I don't think that's true. People are using the word and they're not doing the action.
Well, this is where I come back to like the original part of this discussion, this labeling situation, because you know, so many, it is such an interesting time. Like I said, you don't get.
Do you know where the word comes from?
I don't.
Coach is a place in Hungary. It's a Hungarian word.
No way.
They invented the first carriage that was made for very important people to transfer them from one place to the next. It's the vessel that carries an important person from one place to the next.
That's cool.
That's quite literally what a coach means. And then obviously it became a coach and a carriage or whatever, and later was referenced. I want to say that it was used in university in England to describe somebody that almost tutors somebody through medical school. You're coaching them through it, because a doctor is a very important person, and they took that term. And I like, ever since I heard it that way, I was like, oh my God, like, why are we even debating about this? You're like a fucking guide, and you need to be basically somebody. I think about it like being the actual vehicle. Like, let me take the bumps out of this ride. I know where we're going. I know what it feels like. Let me just make it easier for you so that you can be better at the thing. You don't have to waste your time on the suspension, because really the advancement in the carriage was the suspension. So that it wasn't so bumpy, so they could focus, or whatever the thing you want to take it is. And that's really helped me be like, oh, do I want to coach this person? Do I want to get underneath them and absorb the hardship? That is like kind of what, like, yeah, I don't want to do that for everybody.
Yeah,
like
that's cool.
Definitely, you can't even pay me to do that for some people.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I think it's really interesting. And I don't know if there are, everyone who wears the moniker kind of thinks in, about that example, or would even align with that example. I'm not sure. I do know lots of coaches that, like, that's exactly their MO, and they're they really care, and they really want to help. But yeah, it's a fascinating. It's such an language is so. It's really weird, right? So, like I said, I'm not a massive fan of labels, but they're so important. Words are so important. Like how we communicate, like trying to share feelings and insights and stuff is so important. But it's such like, you wouldn't. Again, I always use the plumber thing because everyone kind of gets that, right? But like, you wouldn't be like, we wouldn't be a. Well, your plumber can also work in the garden,
Unless I was an adult home video. Then I would have a different description of what a plumber does. I know what you mean.
Do you know what I mean? Like, you wouldn't be like, oh, can you also do the electrics? Maybe they can. Maybe they're also an electrician. But do you know what I mean? Like, we're not. Or can you fix my car? Or even trying to attempt it.
Totally. And I love this analogy because it also, I think what it reveals also maybe like what is unsaid about what you're describing as there isn't like a coach should be able to do X, Y, and Z and not the other stuff. Also, it can't be replaced because it's so hard to describe.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it can't just be replicated. And that's why when I see this, like, online coaching, do this thing, this will make you a thing. And I think we as humans need permission machines. A lot of coaching is actually just giving somebody permission to do what they already know.
Yeah, which is why it's asking questions.
Yeah.
Like, it just, what do you think? And they're kind of like, well, I would do this. And you're like,
Most people, maybe I'll ruin it for most people, but like we talked about this, I think the other day, when somebody comes to me and they're like, I want to do this. And I'm like, what do you think you should do? Like, what is the first? Because I need to know how close they are to thinking or like taking the right action.
Yeah.
And if somebody doesn't even know, that might even be a worse problem anyway, because you're not even thinking about
helping with confidence or belief or whatever it is.
Because most people, they saw the thing that they wanted and they didn't think about anything else. Like most people, they want to retire and they want to like move to Tahiti and drink Mai Tais or like whatever the local bev is. They haven't thought through day 5. They haven't even, right? They're just like they have this beautiful image in their mind of relaxation, no worries, and they haven't built the construct to get this. In fact, funny enough, like, I'll get more into this, but a lot of what we do in the physical realm will cross over into the financial realm because they are the same subject realistically. How you analyze anything has to do with the ins and outs, right? The bank account, the diet, it's all about what you put in and kind of what you get out. And
it's a good analogy for stuff like diet, like
bank account.
Exactly.
Yeah, and if you don't want to, there's a type of person that just doesn't want to look. Right, they're running
constant
through life kind of they're like
got the credit card out and I'm eating pizza every day.
Exactly. And they're just hoping, they just hand over their card like I hope it goes through. And you're like, that's wild to me. It's not, because I understand it. I think you see it even in disease where people like I had a lump, and I was too nervous to go in. And you're like, same thing. They don't want to acknowledge it. They just are hoping for a better circumstance to kind of hit them in the face. And I think, man, I really feel for that kind of person. But in fact, I really love opening that person up to the beauty of like understanding what is actually happening. Because I think I did that for finances for a long time. It took a coach to be like, is it important to you? And I was like, yeah. He's like, then why aren't you checking your bank account when you wake up? And I was like, I never fucking thought of that.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, what does that do? And he's like, it puts it at the front of your mind. And so whatever's important to you, you put in front of you and you can't ignore it.
Yeah.
And I was like, that is such an important, like, people want to be fit. They want to feel good. They want to do this. But if they never put it in front of themselves, if they don't look at the reality of where they're at, they can't go anywhere. There's no position in which to move from. And that in itself, I think that's like such an excellent way to kind of like bring people into the realm of the importance of coaching, because you are revealing the things that they don't want to address, or maybe just double checking the fact that is what they should address. It could be either or.
Yeah, definitely. I hasten to sometimes say most people, because I think, like, again, everyone's so different. But from what I've seen, an experience of mine that I've had with talking to, the people I've talked to, asking the question of like, what do you want? And sometimes being, it's something I think about a lot. I don't know if it's the coach in me, or it's just I'm wired this way, but I'm constantly asking myself questions like that. And when you ask someone that conceivably is the first time, and they're like, I don't really know. And if they've, if you're not asking yourself certain questions, like there are questions that someone will ask me that I never ask myself. That's one of the reasons I.
Can you think of one?
Not off the top of my head, but that's again why I enjoy our conversations, and even part of the reason I go to therapy. She asked me a question I've never thought of, and I'm like, and like your example around finance just then, I think you don't go to a coach because they're going to give you the answers, or a therapist or whatever. You go to the coach because they're going to ask you a question you're not asking yourself, or you've never asked yourself. I think sometimes people think that they go to a coach and they're going to get given the answers. Like, tell me what and it's like, exactly. And then when they go and they're like, they didn't tell me anything. It's like, it all already. Like when that thing, you knew it already. It's not like rocket science, but it is just like, I hadn't really thought about it, or you had framing something in a certain way, or a perspective shift that unlocks something for you, so that you're able to move through wherever you are, or move towards something that you want. Because and again, there are teachers. Like, again, it's another little term and distinction, right? I'll go to someone, like perhaps I come to you because I want to be taught how to be more effective at jiu-jitsu, or moving for jiu-jitsu or something like that. You go to these teachers because they have skills and knowledge that you want to learn, and a coach can totally encompass that, but actually they're perhaps just figuring out why you want that, or helping you with a perspective shift.
This is really interesting, because I think, I've had a lot of, maybe I don't want to admit this, but a lot of anxiety, like tremendous amount of real like physical stress about trying to understand the shift that we're about to go through as a society. A lot of it has to do with AI, but not for the reasons that I think people think. Now, we've talked about AI a lot because I think it's fascinating.
Yeah, me too.
It's obviously like a phenomenal tool. Obviously, it's going to be abused, just like, processed foods was an amazing advancement, and we see how terrible that has turned out. I think in the same sense, we're going to see
any tool,
any tool,
any tool in human history.
So I have to couch
someone's
that.
Gone along and been like,
I just want, so somebody doesn't think that I'm just like, a fuck it, like let's let's Skynet everything.
There's going to be a plumber in the DMs, because I've talked about a plumber who's like, I'm a phenomenal coach and all my tools haven't been abused. So I'm sure I've pissed someone off. But
well, I think my anxiety, like my fear arose from one realization, and that was that knowledge is actually being devalued. Knowledge became devalued almost instantaneously. There is now nothing that you can't know, and what it showed was how worthless knowing it is. What became a reality was the importance on something that that they I think they recognized when they understood computation for the first time. So the first time, I can't remember what I want to say. It was God, what was the subject? It wasn't computation, but it had to do with data, and it had to do with thermodynamics. So they're arguing in the 70s kind of about thermodynamics because they couldn't really define it, and they were going back and forth with experiments that would illuminate energy, because they're basically saying that knowledge, this is where it comes true actually, is that knowledge is a freebie. It's like actually balanced. It doesn't cost any energy. What costs energy is getting rid of knowledge that is unnecessary. And now we're like, now that knowledge is free, you're just like, blowing things and facts and stuff into people's heads, some of it true, some of it not true, which is the real, but it becomes noise, because really what we're trying to get to is wisdom. We're trying to reduce, we're not trying to increase. Every attempt of technology is almost like adding to more medicines, more food types, more ways of doing things, more convenience. But in reality, every kind of like major shift is a reduction and it reduces down to what's important. So all the great works of art are reductions, right? Like if I just splatter a bunch of paint, it's fine. The picture that comes out because I take time to refine it or bring it away, or like maybe sculpting is like a better example of that. I'm removing everything that's unimportant to reveal the genius of that rock or whatever.
Absolutely.
And so I really look at coaching like a reduction process. Adding to it usually makes it worse. If I give people a list of shit to do and exercises and stuff that they have to now retain, it really is like, it makes it a painful process. But I usually try to find, I think that you're right, coming back to like you saying, like asking the right question. As soon as I can like understand where they're limited, we can start reducing the shit that doesn't matter. Get rid of that thought, get rid of this process, stop doing this. It's not worth your time. Let's get to the stuff that really moves you in the direction you want to go. And that's where I think coaching is irreplaceable, right? It's like there's a lot of coaches that are claiming the name and not doing the job of it, which means they're not getting from one place to the next.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I think for me, and I think it's just a kind of another way of saying what you just did, but like knowledge is how you apply it. It's the application for me, like, because you can learn something on an AI model and then it's like, but can you actually apply it?
Yeah.
And a coach can assist with that. And I think one of the other things that I'm quite optimistic about it. Don't get me wrong, there's days where I'm like, oh God, we're all doomed.
Yeah, for sure.
But I'm quite optimistic about it because I think that there's a couple of things. One, knowledge there's no gatekeeping. I think that there's sometimes within certainly the fitness industry around like nutrition or supplementation or training, that sometimes there's a bit of gatekeeping that goes on perhaps.
Totally.
And it's not the knowledge, like you say, like the coach isn't there just to be like, I have all this knowledge. It's how can they apply that knowledge to you in your exact situation right now, and then, like you say, get rid of all of the stuff that is non-essential to that person getting to where they want to be.
Yeah, I think it's important to understand that the gatekeeping is a really important conversation, because that is the importance in decentralizing, right? And that muddies the water. It makes it so like the average person can have input, which becomes a very dangerous conversation about who is an expert, who gets to say what.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think, man, I would always aim towards danger and freedom over the perception of safety and control.
Yeah, I think I agree with that as well. And some people won't. I mean, some people kind of struggle with that idea. But I kind of think that it potentially frees us up as human beings to kind of like do more interesting things rather than having to worry about like as I said, it feels, I can't spell, right? Like
sure.
My brain does not allow me to spell correct. Like I can see when something's spelled incorrectly. If someone else writes something and I'm like, well, this is spelled all correctly, I'm that annoying person that can point it out to you, but I can't see my own and I glaze over things. My brain doesn't work in that way. So AI enables me to be able to write better, and it fills in a massive gap where my brain, my operating system does not work in that regard. So it enables me to free me up to kind of do other things that I am better at or I'm good at. And I think my hope is that, because there's a lot of coaches out there that are really worried about AI. Because you can right now, you can be like, hey, you want a meal plan? You'll get a really good one from AI. Or if you want some macros and stuff like that.
This is my favorite part about it, actually. It's proving exactly what I've been saying, is that it's irrelevant, right? Like the exercise in sets is not the thing. That isn't coaching. And now I think the people that are getting upset on it is because their impression and their business is contingent on telling people that that's the magic, that's the secret.
Perhaps even that identity.
Totally, yeah.
Easily. Someone who's had their identity very much checked many times and had to be like, who am I? What am I doing? Why am I here? I think it's really hard to have like frank conversation of being like, well, I was the guy that wrote the program or the girl that made the meal plan or what have you. And now it's like, well, someone can put that into ChatGPT and get, maybe not all the knowledge, but like it's really good for that kind of stuff. It's pretty phenomenal.
It's pretty decent, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, I've messed with it quite a bit, and this is kind of the funny thing, because obviously, like, what we put out would be considered programming or something like that. But the reason why it was like worded originally in the context that we did when calling it the space program was that it was void of architecture. Actually, it was void of a container, space being empty, and program being direction. You're like, it was a void of a direction. And therefore you were free to kind of move within a boundary. That was the whole concept, and that was what we took forward. Although when people look at it, I think one of the hardest things for them to look at is to go like, what am I supposed to do? And you're like, you're just, the only thing that is worth anything is that first paragraph, is the idea. Because this is my, this releases quite a bit of anxiety, thinking like, although AI will make a lot of people's existence redundant. I know that's like a nice way of saying.
Well, yeah, it's just gonna. I mean, it's really funny to me because we've had machines taking human beings' jobs for a long time, right? Like Detroit. Look at what happened to Detroit. It was like one of the most prosperous places on the planet.
Sure.
All of a sudden, we were like, we can make cars with machines. We don't need all these people. And now it's like it's just on a much grander scale, which is going to affect a lot more people.
For sure.
I think a lot more. There's a lot of people kind of freaking out about it, and understandably so. Like, I think that's. I've kind of lost jobs and had, again, like I say, identity challenge quite a lot, and it just kind of freeing in a way, because I'm like, well, and that's where it comes back to like, I'm kind of glad I've got all these different interests, because actually it means that I can pivot. Whereas if you've only ever done one thing and you've like specialized in this one thing, and this is some of the conversations we're having this week, you kind of like, oh crap, I'm not going to have to learn a completely different skill set.
Yeah, it's like putting all your eggs in one basket, which is like kind of a fable or an old saying, because it's such a true thing. Like if you're only doing one thing and counting on it, man, nature is going to upset you with the drastic shifts that happen.
I mean, it's the illusion of control, because one of the things, I have a sentence, I don't know how smart it is or whether it's even useful, but I always say that one of the toughest things about the human experience is that we're ever evolving beings in an ever changing world. There is no set point,
right?
And that's, I think, why people are so drawn to fitness, because I lift this weight, I progressive overload, my weight goes up, I have this set point, and I think that's one of the things that gets harder as you get older, because then suddenly your set point comes backwards and you're like, no. But
so this is why I think most people have disappointing experiences with fitness.
Do you?
Yeah, because it has nothing to do with that. So imagine if so the construct that we're writing in general, when you read a program or you do you get a coaching engagement, or it's always geared towards the very top end of expression of fitness, which doesn't make any sense for people. It's like saying, I'd like a little bit more money, and I'd like to have like some better experiences. I'd like to go on vacation or something, and somebody'd be like, you got to be an industrialist, and I'd be like, what? Like, you have to have a Fortune 500 company, and I'd be like, I can't just like work harder. And they're like, no, you got to get out. You got to you got to start a factory and hire 50,000 people, and those 50,000. And you're like, I have to do the extreme version of what, no, you have to be a billionaire. And you're like, you don't actually, you just have to. And I think fitness, by saying like, oh, I got to get more fit. And people are like, all right, 5 sets of 5. You're like, that is a program for peaking, for competition. It has nothing to do with just like being more capable.
Yeah, we do have this tendency as part of the human experience to, because we're efficiency machines, to always look for the most optimal. And I'm guilty of it as well. That's kind of like what I get excited by it. I'm like, I want to, what's the most optimal thing I can do around this? How can I make this most optimal? And actually, like, I program for myself. I used to get other people to program for me, because I would do things that I wouldn't do, the things I didn't enjoy.
Yeah.
And I kind of had this thing of like, well, I need to be good at, especially when you're kind of in CrossFit, you want to, be well-rounded, all this kind of stuff. I started programming for myself because I wanted training to be fun again. And I wanted to do the things I did like, and I wanted to use my knowledge. And I was like, well, if I'm going to program for other people, but I don't program for myself, what does it say about what I program? But actually coming here, one of the nice things is like, I've not followed my program at all. Mm-hmm. And, again,
we're all just doing Gina's.
Yeah, exactly. It's just, but it, coming into the space and doing, I also, again, we have a lot of the same ideas around fitness. So it's kind of I don't look at something and be like, oh, I don't really want to do this. Most of the time it's like, oh, cool, this is something that I'm into. But it's just been nice kind of coming in and being part of the experience, which I don't get as much of that in the gyms anymore, because it is so programmized. Do you know what I mean? Like it's not come in and, oh, what are we doing today? Oh, this is kind of interesting. Why are we doing this? A lot of the time it's like it's part of a cycle, and we're doing it because this is where it fits into the cycle and that kind of stuff. And look, I'm not bashing it. That, like, I get the validity of that, especially if you're running a gym and you have lots of members and you want to take them through a GPP or whatever it is, right? But one of the beauties of that is, you know, we come in, some of the training sessions we had over the last week, we come in, we have a collective experience, like, and I think that's why people go to competitions now, or go and do a high rocks, or go and do a whatever. They want an experience with a collective. And I think that's one of the things that I sort of miss in some of the gym experiences I do have, is sometimes that collective experience, because it's a bit too formulaic sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, I really do think, like, what we call programming, I don't necessarily call it that. I do think of it as experiential, and this is why the importance of applying the session, or, you know, the stimulus is what I would refer to as, like, I'm just giving you a stimulus and hoping that the sensation translates. And the reason why I kind of have geared things towards that, as opposed to like any of the more sciencey kind of sports science stuff, and thinking like I'm affecting the, you know, VO2 max and lung capacity,
which is really cool. If you want to be like a games athlete or a professional Olympian or whatever it is.
Yeah, I mean, the argument is that
professional Olympian. That's not
I think like
they're not professional.
Yeah, the argument is like it's totally a way to do it, right? That like it's like, okay, maybe the analogy I'd give is like, you're going to university, you're going to get a law degree, and then you're going to get into politics, and then you're going to like run for office. Like, that's a very formulaic way, and in a high amount of outcomes that take that road and are serious about it and express it correctly have positive outcomes. Like, they're successful people. And so I don't want to say that like mine is better. I'm saying that like my style of training is like traveling abroad and learning from like what you see. And that you can't translate. I can't program in what a fucking croissant in Paris tastes like. You literally just have to go taste it. That's how I think of training. It's like, here, dabble this into your day, and the way that we translate the sensation is just by like setting the situation up correctly. In training, to me, that way comes back with much more conversation, which is, from a coaching perspective, that's why I started doing it. Instead of telling somebody what to do, I started like sharing what we do and being like, try this or try that, or giving them kind of like, modify it like this, so until you feel like this. That's now when you get into coaching, even if you're doing like a rigid program, a static program where you're like 5 sets of 5 and progressing it each week or whatever, essentially what I took away from the best coaches in the world when they get into something like that, rotating floating sets, you know, some of the architecture that they use for these programs for like peaking weightlifting are really complex. They never stick with it. They always go, what does it feel like? And they go, it feels slow. I'm like, okay, back off. Or it feels really fast. Like, okay, advance it, or do an extra set, or do an extra rep, or let's modify the exercise or the movement. What they're really coming down to in the end is based off of what the coach senses and feels, based off of how they're interacting with the athlete, or the what I would call the player. The reason why I think that's really important is because then the dialogue around it changes. We're not talking about performance in the sense of like, I'm bigger, faster, stronger. Although those might be the goals that we set to start with, because I think that's what most people are like. I either want to be leaner, or I don't feel good, or, you know, I want to be stronger.
There's goals and outcomes.
Healthier for my kids, whatever the like generic kind of universal desire of fitness is. And then as you go, come to me, and then you like start to narrow it in and show them, like, again, reducing it down to produce something that they didn't even know was possible. And this is why I've landed on it, because so many times, and it takes a while. This is a very long road, but after training somebody for like 6 months, often I'll get somebody that's like, that felt weird. I'm like, what do you mean? Are you hurt? And they're like, no, my brain did something really interesting. And you're like, cool.
Yeah.
You don't have to say anything. Like they understand that in this like way that you've promoted training. Oh my God, I'm gonna freak out.
It's being attacked by the fly.
It's literally just like the most annoying kind. It's like a small one that's soft and it doesn't ever land. It just like buzzes.
Probably
around.
doesn't pick up on camera, so it just looks like you're having
I'm
a panic attack.
Slapping wildly and stuff.
Yeah.
So
it's like a Star Wars movie being attacked, attacked by a TIE fighter.
So in that essence, what I found from the outcome is like, as soon as somebody realizes that they can change how they feel by moving and then start exploring their mind because it takes you somewhere, you basically transport into a conversation within your head and a sensation overload, and they get done and they examine parts of themselves that they didn't really see that were there before. Almost nobody cares about abs after that. Right? Nobody's like, yeah, but I'm not. They're like, I just had a like outer body experience from exercise, and you're like, yeah, but there's a reason why it works like that.
Yeah.
Right. There's an absolute reason why, and that's because the physiology. Even if we break things apart and try to reduce it down to its different, subjects, like the psychology, what do we want to call the mental part of it, the physiology, which is like the working muscles, the energetics of the duration and the intensity, all of these things start to dictate reactions from how you move through them. Right? When we call it training, kind of like, what do you mean train? You're like, well, when somebody's just exercising, right? Mm-hmm. Like, oh, I'm just exercising or I'm training. We build a distinction. You're like, what is training? You're like, well, it's programming. You're like, well, what do you mean? You're like, well, I'm giving a construct in order to put a stimulus into the tissue or the body or the physiology so that it adapts and changes. So you're like, oh, you're doing behavior modification. That's really what you're talking about. You're like, except we think we've taken, I think, the subject of sports science and coaching, and we've reduced it down to like muscles and bones and connective tissue. And I go, that is the most absolutely bullshit reduction that we've ever done, because it's actually the inverse of that. You start moving mechanically and your body has this genius about it, right? Where the muscles and tissues start working at a certain rate over time and pumping blood in a certain way that it starts actually relaying up to the brain, and the brain starts to change its structure, which is why today that we can absolutely say and not get yelled at by society and being like, exercise is actually more effective than SSRI medication. Mm-hmm. The reason being is that it's behavior modification. And we come back to like, well, what do you do when you get a dog? You train it. Well, what do you talk about when you're training it? You like set the parameters so that it behaves the way that you want the dog to be. Well, when you train yourself, you're essentially setting the parameters to become the kind of person that acts the way that you want to act.
Yeah.
Except that's not talked about in our society. It's like, it's you got to have a VO2 max that's higher because Peter Attia said that it leads to longevity. We are like taking the most important part about training and we're obfuscating it and making it superficial and misunderstood.
Yeah, it feels like we're trying to intellectualize everything a little bit rather than feeling stuff. And yeah, I mean, I think, like, being brutally honest, I've always been interested with people, and one of my early jobs was training people within tech industry. So I like got connected to learning and development and psychology, and I loved it. But I got into like doing fitness because I wanted to look better, because to build my own self-esteem and confidence, and also because it's how you get chicks, right? Or at least that's how I thought back when I was like in my teenage years, idiot that I was back then. And I think a lot of people get into it because they want to look better, right? And I think that's totally valid. Mm-hmm. But the journey you go on, like, it was funny, I was overheard someone in the coffee shop the other day being like, I got into training because I wanted to look good, and then realized it was like affecting my brain more than anything, like the way I thought. And I think anyone who's done this for long enough, just in any of their experiences, like whenever I talk to a runner, they don't talk to me about like how they've got faster, and like they do a bit, but they normally talk to me about, I have the best like my thinking when I like frees my mind. I feel so much better, like lighter after it. Like all the, it's that kind of stuff. It is the neurological element of it, I think, and the experience and the shared experience as well.
It's almost the medicinal part of it, right? It's the part. And again, I would agree with you. Like, and to be fair, it hasn't gone away. I still work out because I want to look a certain way.
Yeah, for sure.
I
haven't got to the level where I'm like, I don't really care how I look. I still want to look.
The only people that say they don't care about how they look impeccable, like that. And the reason why I think it's important to first address the fact that, like, no one's I don't think that it's superficial. I don't think looking muscular and fit and capable is superficial. I think it's actually one of the most deep-seated virtues, because what you're saying when you say I want to look better is you're like, I want beauty in the figure that I was giving. Like, I want to create something that is good to look at for myself, obviously, but also for other people. How is that any less virtuous than painting something that's beautiful or taking a picture that other people can look at that's beautiful? It's like nature has a fundamental architecture that is geared towards beauty. This happened when we were in Hawaii, but it happens everywhere, right? You're like, we were walking in Hawaii, like everything stops and everybody watches the sunset. What? It's like, this happens every day. It's not a surprise. It always looks fucking beautiful there, right? The colors are like insane. It's just a random occurrence, though, right? It's a random thing that happens. What makes it beautiful? Like, what is it about a sunset that is beautiful? It's the colors, it's the feeling, it's the sensation that you get. Really, you could like dig in and try to quantify the beauty of it, but you don't have to. You just have to stop and appreciate it.
And then take a picture and put it on Instagram.
Yeah. And same thing. Like, if I see, what is it about abs that says something? And nowadays you have all these like Fitspo people that probably started, this is the arc that I usually see. They're 25. They have like insane metabolisms. They might even take some PEDs or something to get really jacked and muscular. People ask them how they did it. They figured out some dieting things with macros or whatever. They teach other people. They become a coach. Then they get to the end of it and they're like, I can't believe these people are just obsessed with abs. And you're like, I've moved beyond that. Now I'm a spiritual guru or whatever the fuck they want to call themselves. And in reality, you're like, no, like, it's not an entry level. It might be an entry level, but it doesn't mean that it's amateur, or doesn't mean it's not important. Beauty and aesthetics is part of the lived experience. And having abs signals something very specific to society. It says that in maybe not a so direct way or even honest way, because now you can get abs by being kind of unhealthy. But originally, when you see them, what it says is kind of discipline, right? Here, my big theory on it is that when you see somebody with abs, you see somebody who doesn't take more than they need. That's actually what it says, right? You're like, this person is lean enough that they don't overindulge, which means they won't take. Like, why women might be attracted is because they might say, if I have a child with this person, they're going to provide. If there's extra, they will give it to their family. They'll give it to their friends. They're a provider. Now, nobody wants to talk about that because it is in our age. I'm not saying that is true. I'm not saying that, but that's the original perception that I think, evolutionary speaking, might be transmitted. Same thing with like a woman having large breasts. They can like provide milk for a child, or wide hips. They can have many children. It's not true. It's not like, but it is kind of a default thing in our brain that when we see it, we're attracted to the aesthetics for it.
There is some kind of signaling mechanism for
some kind of evolutionary thing.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it wouldn't make any sense. Now, again, we are beyond that. We are injecting shit into our faces and our tits and our asses that make that absolutely the opposite of the perception that we get.
Yeah.
And we're being so unhealthy and we're so selfish that we have ripped abs. It would be the opposite implication, but I still think our brains are wired to look at beauty and aesthetics that way.
Yeah, I think that's perhaps where some of the discomfort for some people around, a lot of the new medical interventions around like LPG1 agonists and all that kind of stuff. Have I said that right? Ozempic, anyway.
Yeah.
When I say that, like GLP-1 agonists.
Yeah, GLP-1s. Yeah. Wegovy and yeah.
Yeah, like because those that have really worked hard are like, what? You can now just you know, take this thing and like, you know, well, I don't really care. Like I said, for me, it's always been I want to try and be, it sounds really cliche, but I want to see how far I can go in terms of like maximizing everything I have, like realize my potential in every domain. That's kind of like the thing that gets me kind of pumped up. And everyone's kind of got their own, I guess, reason or story that they want to attach to that. Yeah. What I thought would be interesting is, where do you see coaching going? What do you think the future of coaching is? Because this is something that I'm...
Such a coaching question. Yeah. Forward facing.
Yeah, exactly. But like, I'm intrigued by it because I'm like I said, I'm optimistic, but at the same time, I think it's kind of interesting.
I think it's about to take off.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like I love all of the noise, because signal is so much better with a lot of noise, and so you're like, the efficacy with which you can do your profession will secure what you can do. You will never fail if you can produce value for somebody. Like you can't fail. Now, you can be not as successful as some people, or maybe you don't leverage it as successfully as other people. But I think if you have an obsession with providing a value for somebody in the form of coaching, you have like nothing to worry about, because it's an irreplaceable part. As cool as ChatGPT is, and some of these like LLMs are, these models are like incredible. Here's what like solidifies my assurance that coaching is okay for the future. An artificial intelligence that has access to essentially like all human knowledge, everything that we know, it can access. Right? It's just, it can tap into it. Some stuff that we don't even want it to access, it can like get in there. It has made no discoveries, it has cured no diseases, and it has solved no major problems. It hasn't like negotiated peace between two countries. It hasn't, it hasn't found an off-label use for a medication for a rare disease. In which case you go, it's not that intelligent. It's not actually technically intelligence. I think that's what Apple's paper was saying, is that it's a very complex algorithm, but once you get down to the bottom with it, or you overcomplicate things, which is like given the nuance of a human problem, every human problem is very complex. That's why there's no answer to it. And that is why a coach will be necessary to it, because there might be somebody who can point to the logical ins and outs, right? You're like, well, your squat sucks, so you got to do this, or to translate into like, performance, like, oh, you're not recovering, so you need to sleep and eat like this. Those are kind of logical inputs, but the real intelligence is understanding why that problem is arising in the first place. You're actually the most advanced problem solver that has ever existed, and I find it strange that people pay more for a Ferrari than a person. Right? Like, like, that's always baffled me. You're like, somebody will take a handmade thing that can be made by a machine and think that that's like rare and important or whatever. But if you get a smart human to help you solve your problems, that's one of the most incredible things that you could ever do. Just put somebody on it that is motivated to solve the problem. That's where I think it's a kind of like a saving grace, because we can look at a complex situation, especially with enough experience, as like a good coach, no matter what the field of coaching you're in. And you can see beyond the logic. You can tell that there's no answer here, right? I have a feeling though that we should do this. And that's where the best coaches come out. I've had I've been super fortunate because Darren, one of my business partners in Ritual, still very much connected to the Utah Jazz. And so Will Hardy, the head coach of the Jazz, comes in here frequently. We train together, and we go back and forth. I spent a lot of time with him, asking him questions, and I've watched him at his games and back in the locker room. I've watched him coach at the highest level. And what is amazing is that, like, he'll even tell you this probably, like, the sport is easy. Getting somebody good at basketball is not hard. Dealing with like the reality of the game and the personalities and the media and the thing, he's like, that is the challenge. And there's no amount of information that could teach you how to deal with that. You literally have to be thrust into it. And here's what I found. This is what I found about. This is why you know it's a valuable profession. You have somebody that is quite literally at the top of the game. There's no higher position for a coach than the head coach of like a national basketball team. It's just, there isn't, right? You're dealing with like the most insane characters and skill. Like when you see an American basketball player do like a fucking 46-inch vertical, you're like, what did I just see? So you see talent, money, fame, all of this stuff play out. You would think that you know what that person's going to be like. You're like, they're probably a dick. Opposite. There's no way he could be successful. He asks me infinite questions. He is asking me questions the whole time. And I'm asking, like, I'm not, like, we're exchanging the whole time. Like, hey, how did you do this? What did you think about this? I came to your game. When they did this, like, I'm so curious as to how he does it. He literally does the same thing to me. He texts me questions all day long. Hey, you mentioned this in the sauna, or we were working out and you said this thing, but I thought about it. And you're like, he's so infinitely curious. It made me realize that he understands the value of another set of eyes. He does not care that I'm like below him by many degrees. And I think what we share is that we're like so fascinated by humans. I think you're the same way, right? We could like just exchange all day on what we know. I bet if we just went down and watched a class together with the intention of just being like, tell me what you see, I think we would see totally different things. We'd have totally perceptions, and I think we would learn infinitely off of what we saw, which tells me we have job security forever, really. Because there's no machine that can have that interaction or that kind of influence back into it. So that's I think it will get noisier, but I think the signal will become clear. Because as soon as ChatGPT is the coach or whatever, awesome, I'm worth even more. And the only people that are threatened by that are the people that don't realize that what their real job is. Hopefully it will remove people who are causing noise, because they're like, oh, you know what? I was just writing programs, but now people just do ChatGPT. And you're like, well, those people are worthless because they don't understand what an actual coach experience is. So if that's what you thought that it was, get out of the way. Like, let people do what they're going to do.
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting. I actually asked ChatGPT this. I was like, what do you think the future of coaching is? Yeah. I think that the connection thing, it was like, I cannot replicate human connection.
No way. Okay.
Yeah, it was like, I cannot connect with a human like you can connect with a human. There's energetics. There's something about looking across from another person, looking into their eyes and talking to them and feeling like they have your back and they want it, they're invested in you. That I just can't replicate, which I thought was quite interesting.
Doesn't that tell you, like, you're like, that just told you how to market your business?
Yeah.
Right? That literally just said that was the value proposition. That's it.
Yeah.
You're like, and most people are like, I
hadn't actually thought about that. That's really
20
good.
years experience. I'm like, I can do that. And you're like, no, like, hey, I got your back. Like, if I'm your coach, I'm literally in your corner. You're hiring me to be the person who can have a connection with you, try to understand you, and move you to the place that you want to be. You don't need to know anything else. That's it.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's a really big part of it. And then just like basically what you completely agree with what you're saying. It's like the application of all of that stuff, like being able to be curious and ask questions and then apply that to that person. Like ChatGPT can tell you what to do, but it can't help you do it.
Yeah.
It's not going to be like, okay, well, let's figure this out. Let's work on it together. Like, okay, you struggle with that. Like, right, cool. Let's problem solve it. It can just give you unless you know what to put in and be like, I really struggle with this, or blah, you've got that level of awareness.
Try this. Just go back and put in your debt to income ratio and just your financial basics and like see what it would give you. It still can't do anything, right? It'll tell you like, you should reduce debt and you should do this and maybe you should. It's going to give you a very like generic response, which is probably where you might be. If that was your situation, but you just take the ins and outs of zeros and ones of like a debit and credit, and it still can't do it for you. It could give you good advice. It could give you, but as a person, you really need to be able to do it for yourself.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I think it's fascinating, and I'm intrigued. I hope that not just for my sake, because obviously it's what I do for a living, but like I hope that coaching and therapy and all these modalities do increase, because I think Well, I don't know. Again, it's just personal perspective. It's my story that I've attached myself to, you know. But I think that where we are in society at the moment is that again, that disconnect to reconnect. Like, I'd love to see us connect with one another truly and understand each other and help each other out more. And I feel like coaching's got a really valuable role to play within that, or at least I hope it has. Not, again, just from a purely self-serving point of view.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, like, I want, because there's other disciplines that I hire coaches for. You know, like, I don't need a fitness coach at this point necessarily, but there might be a day where I actually need somebody to, like, in fact, well, that was one of the things that I hired Grayson to do. I was like, that's how that last podcast came out. I was like, hey, would you just like, let me know, more of like a consultancy, but literally just like, hey, coach me, this is what I'm thinking, let me just make sure I'm looking at this the right way. And then it just turned into a conversation like, let's just put this out, because it ended up being great, and he's an amazing thinker. But I just wanted some, I just like, dude, I think a lot about other people. I rarely look at myself that way, but I do hire other people to teach me certain things. Like Erin right now is like, we're both learning Hungarian. She hired a Hungarian coach. That has been an insane kind of like multidisciplinary learning thing, where you're like trying to pick up a new language. So I'm trying to understand how I learn things, how I retain them, what things are memorable, all of that. Super basic. Anybody can go learn a language. They just choose not to. And anybody can amplify their ability to learn a language by getting somebody who understands the language. Most of my questions, and this probably rubs Erin like raw, like, because we'll get on and she's like, okay, and she wants to practice the stuff that we've done, and I'm like, what's the history of this word? Like, where did this, I have like these philosophical insights. This word jinje means weakness, but like, what does it really mean? And so like we go back and forth, but just like that kind of. And then when it came to like finance and business, I finally recognized I fucking know nothing about business. I've been doing it and trying it for a long time, but hey, I bet it'd really help to have somebody who understood it. And that's where and to be fair, 3 engagements. I was like, I got it. Not I got it, but like I was like, totally worth it. I know exactly what I need to work on. I actually didn't need like a full-time coach. I needed somebody to fucking slap me and tell me to focus on the thing that I know I need to focus on. Really simple, but also some of the most expensive coaching I've ever paid for, and the most valuable. And I could honestly say that I already knew what they were going to tell me. I just couldn't hear it from myself. And that's really what I paid for. It's insane.
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of had coaches and gone through that, but there was a long period of time where I kind of wanted to do everything myself, for sure. Just because it was almost like I was programmed to do it, because I
3-6. No, I'm just
yeah, exactly. Yeah, maybe. But again, just going through some of the things I went through in life, where I was like, well, I just need to figure this out on my own, almost like a sense of purgatory, where I would kind of like, would be hard on myself. Right, you got to figure this out. Like, you got to figure this out. And for a long time, then kind of went the other way, where I started asking everyone for help, and now I'm kind of starting to net out in the middle. But I think coaches, it's super valuable to have a coach. And I have a few people in my life that help with that. So, but I think sometimes it's even just acknowledging that you could have some help with it. Is some of the things. Sometimes people are, that was it for me. It was like, oh, actually I don't need to do everything on my own. Like, some of the feedback I got through going through working with coaches or therapists or whatever is that, like, you're very hard on yourself and you beat yourself up and you try and do everything yourself, and you actually need to just be like, ask for help and then actually accept it when the help comes. So yeah, it's kind of, everyone's kind of got to go through their journey with it, I think. But I do think that there's immense value. Again, it's, find the right person, and sometimes you do have to pay for the right person.
For sure.
But it can. I think the other challenge is that people perhaps sometimes nervous around it because they've heard a horror story where I paid this guy loads of money or this girl loads of money, and I didn't really get what I wanted. And and
It's like a lemon.
yeah, but,
Got a lemon.
sometimes it's, again, you've just gone to the wrong person. Maybe you wanted a consultant. Maybe you were really searching for a mentor. Maybe, you know,
Yeah, well, I think it leads to like, well, what were you trying to do?
yeah,
And why wasn't that person able to deliver you to that place?
yeah, and one of the best bits of advice I got ever was from Ozzy, who you know, he said to me, like, don't just pick the first person that comes along. Like, go and talk to a few people, interview them.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
almost, it's like a reverse job interview.
Yeah, for sure.
Go and just see who you vibe with, and if you don't like them, change them.
Yeah.
And that was like the best advice I ever had.
Yeah.
Turns out, like, the therapist ended up going was the first person I spoke to.
Yeah.
But I spoke to some others, and like, yeah, she's wicked. Like, you know,
Yeah.
been immensely valuable for me.
I wonder, like, since you came into this, and I think about this often because I think this is a probably common, because people get into coaching just because I see it in jiu-jitsu too. Like, jiu-jitsu is like really prominent. I like jiu-jitsu. I want to do jiu-jitsu. So how do I get paid to do jiu-jitsu? I'm going to start a school. I'm going to start coaching other people, teaching other people how to do jiu-jitsu. I find that the industry, industrialized fitness, is just saturated with people who kind of like, I like fitness as an interest, and therefore I want to find a way to make money doing it so I can just be interested. Or, you know, and some of them take it to a very serious degree, and you know, take the scientific route or even the professional coaching route, and they get certified. Everybody has a different way of doing it, but I find that, well, what happens when your premier interest in the physicality part of it wanes? When did you notice that happen, or if it haven't happened yet? Like, because obviously you still train quite a bit. That's still really interesting to you.
Yeah.
So I would say, what about it is still interesting to you, and what has taken over as the premier part of coaching?
Oh, it's so I kind of signal myself as a mental, emotional fitness, physical fitness coach. Certainly the mind and emotional state of human beings is the thing for me that like actually kind of when I said I was going back to coaching, or like more prominently into coaching, I should say, because I've always done fitness coaching alongside other roles for the last, like, I don't know, over a decade now. But I almost like bristle a little bit when people are like, oh right, is that something to do with PT and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, not because I think negatively about that space. I still love, you know, PT and programming and stuff like that, but because I just have this other interest and I don't know how to yet communicate about it. But so certainly from that, and the fitness hasn't waned. I just think that it's a piece of the puzzle for me. Like, there's a bigger jigsaw that I am obsessed with around the human, and it's just one piece of that. And I just want to work with more of the puzzle, and I don't want to just be constrained just to one piece. And to be quite frank, like, I love coaching, I love being coach, but I wish I didn't. In some way, it'd be so much easier if I was good at banking or something. Like I don't.
Why can't I just be interested in real estate development?
Yeah,
or something?
exactly. Like, you know, or coding or web design or something like that. Like, Jimmy Carr said this thing, and again, it could just be a story I'm telling myself, but he said, someone asked him, because he tours loads, you know, he's done loads of podcasts as well. I find him quite an insightful guy for someone that does a lot of, like, you know, provocative jokes and sweary jokes and stuff like that. But he's a bit of a philosopher. Anyway, he said on a podcast, someone asked him, why do you tour so much? Because he tours like all the time. He does loads of shows everywhere. He's constantly on stage. And he's just like, well, the universe ordered a comedian, and if I didn't do that, then I would be like fucking up or a mess or whatever. Something to that degree. I'm paraphrasing quite a lot if I've misquoted him, but that resonated with me so hard. I've done so many jobs, probably again quite an ADHD thing. I've worked for tech companies, I've worked in marketing, I've worked in training, I've worked in a garden center. You look at my LinkedIn, like, it's ridiculous. Like, I don't have space on my CV is like 4 pages long, so I have to condense it down to 2. I've had so many jobs, and I can tell you categorically the only one that I feel like I'm meant to do, the reason I'm here, is coaching. Like, when I heard him say that, I was like, shit. Yeah, because I wasn't coaching at the time when I heard it. I was like back in tech, and I was doing it on the side, and I was kind of like had my hand still in a little bit, but I would kind of got out got out of it because I just couldn't quite figure out a way. And then I was like, bollocks, I've got to, like, because it's all I think about. It's like I'm obsessed with it. All I think about every day is coaching, how to coach someone, what they might need, how the human experience, like psychology, philosophy, physiology, like, you know, that's all I think about all of the time. That's all I'm interested in, really. I like a bit of sports and music and stuff like that, and watch the odd movie, but most of the time even when I'm having conversation with someone, I'm like, you know, I wonder if I ask this question or like do this.
I would say even
like
when I'm watching movies, or listening to music, I'm pulling things for reference.
Yeah.
I'm like constantly pulling for insight or some kind of correlation, trying to draw subconsciously most of the time, but sometimes obvious. Sometimes it's so obvious where you're like watching a film, and this happened maybe the other day, and maybe you can like your core interest is such a calling that like I'll be finding myself watching something and I will notice how something affects me and I'll write it down because I think it might affect somebody else the same way. And you're like, that seems like a little tidbit, but if I can connect the dots on transferring a feeling or establishing something, a shift in your state or something like that, man, when it comes up, it'll be really useful.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, the obsession is such it's almost a pejorative, right? You're not supposed to be obsessed. You're supposed to have balance, which to me, when people say balance, I hear stagnation.
Do you? I try and be balanced. It's actually something I really strive for, but this is the one area of my life that is it's totally out of whack. Yeah, like I can't really claim any balance there.
Oh, I see. The only way you can balance is if you don't move anywhere. Like moving forward is an act of stopping your potential fall.
Yeah.
You move. You kick it off with like I got to catch myself.
Yeah.
So I figure like obsession to me is kind of like the act of chasing forward progress in a given subject with no care about falling. Like you just like I don't care how far down I go down this rabbit hole.
Yeah, for sure.
And that is, I think, it's talked about as maybe pejorative, but I think that is like probably, man, it's so weird that we can tell people to specialize, but we can't tell them to obsess. Because they're like kind of two sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
Instead of like, I'm just obsessing about more and a bigger subject, and I think if I did it on one, it would be acceptable or something.
Yeah.
If I was just like, I'm obsessed with basketball, that's okay for like Kobe Bryant or whatever. I don't know. It's kind of interesting. It's an interesting thing for me to try to like deal with, because we've been told so many times to be balanced. I don't think that's true. It doesn't help anybody, right? Like you're like, what is the balance? You're telling people to back away from the thing that they really want to dive into.
Yeah, I don't know if I maybe read it in a slightly different way, but like I see balance as enables me to be obsessed with something, because it
like
enables
taking care of yourself. So you,
yeah. Like if I don't have other things balanced, I'll like burn out and I won't be able to chase the thing.
so I see it as like,
It's like going in and getting your car serviced. If I don't kind of balance the other parts of my life, like I can't go and drive the car across the country or whatever.
so I like that I think is just foresight on the obsession.
Okay.
Right, like what I see it as, and maybe this is the distinction of people say like the most common thing is like work-life balance. What they're saying is like you shouldn't work so much so that you don't live.
So actually something interesting, sorry to interrupt you, but to pay into that was that like I really like the job I have. The company I work for are wicked.
Yeah.
But since I've been working on my own business recently, it's the first time, like I really struggle sometimes when I'd see people working like to like 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. and be like, oh, you need to like chill, you're going to burn yourself out. Since I've started my own thing, I've just been doing that all the time.
Yeah.
And it's because it's because I'm getting to express my obsession. You know, like I'm not, because other times I'd be like listening to podcasts about the thing, or I'd be like watching a video about the thing, and someone would be like, well, you're just watching, you know, it's the equivalent of someone watching a film. You're switching off, you're having relaxation time. Whereas me, it was actually kind of me paying into my obsession. But now I've got output from it, and I think that sometimes is that actually one of the things that I've been guilty of is I've been inputting for so long, and I've been really struggling with not outputting. Like I've got so much in my brain. I've absorbed so much. I actually just need to do something with this now because it's getting uncomfortable. It has to go somewhere. It has to be for something. It can't just be for me like obsessively learning. I have to give some value for it because it's like so frictious.
That exactly. I mean, that literally captures kind of like my sentiment. I think most people think, God, we like preach this kind of like there's this concept that there's just this like flow that you'll fall into where you work just enough to have the happiest life and you'll have just enough.
I think
vacation.
some people. I mean, I don't know. Like, it's really easy just to be an observer of others, but I do think there are some people that like are content with that.
I think complacent with that would be more accurate.
Well, I understand your perspective, but I do think I do know some people that like love their lives and they're simple. And
okay, I don't know anybody who is very good at what they do that isn't tortured by it. That isn't absolutely like it feel like, you know, we went on vacation for like 5 days in Mexico and it was painful for me.
Yeah, well, this is interesting. This is the first vacation I've had since before the pandemic.
Yeah.
And I came here with you, and all we've done is trained and fucking talked about coaching.
It's like somebody would refer to that as unbalanced.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
And I think the only reason it was painful is because I couldn't work as much as I still worked. Right.
Yeah.
I can't get away from it because I can't turn my brain off.
Yeah.
And not in a like unhealthy manner where I'm like, I think you easily excuse people's like diseases where OCD and like kind of these obsessions become when they detract from your well-being, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if my relationships started to suffer because of it, or you know, my marriage,
have. I've like had all.
I mean, the ones that matter, like you know, I definitely, pretty much. And I mean, like one.
I was just talking about my own. Like, I've definitely had it where it gets in the way. I think, it's interesting. But that's why I find
coaching as a subject.
Yeah, for sure.
How? I mean, if you don't mind going, because this is something that's really interesting to me about how I coach people. Is I look at their relationships almost first.
Yeah, I had to be really careful not to bring it into my relationships. Because I started... My desire to help and my desire to see people succeed brought it into my relationships. So there are ex-partners of mine and some of my friends that unfortunately got coached and they didn't sign up to that.
Gotcha. Oh, I see what you're saying.
And I've had, you know, you learn about it when you go through coaching diplomas, which they call contracting, where you're like, hey, by the way, we're getting into this coaching relationship and these are the parameters and these are boundaries and this is how I'm going to show up and this is what I'm going to be able to help you with.
Yeah.
It's really important.
Unsolicited coaching is probably the worst thing.
Yeah, but it's not like when in a gym where you just go over someone, which I've also been guilty of and still do sometimes. It's kind of hard, right? Because sometimes people like love the fact that you're willing to invest and help them, and that's generally where it comes from me as much as I can. But I have gone up to someone and been like, "Hey, let me help you with this technique," and they're like, "Dude, I don't even like what are you doing?"
Yeah.
So I've tried to work on that, and I don't do that as much, very rarely, in fact. But yeah, like, you know, people in my I just start asking them lots of questions and getting very deep, and they're like, "Hang on, what's going on?"
Happening?
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I think that sometimes I definitely feel like it was a positive experience for both of us, but sometimes definitely wasn't. And I have to actively not do that. Like, it's really hard for me to not get into a conversation and start turning it like. I have to be really careful. I try not to ask too many questions. Also kind of makes people uncomfortable after a while as well. Because they're always like, oh yeah, people love talking about themselves. And they kind of do to a point. But
I think so, yeah.
I struggle with small talk. So I always end up getting quite deep and meaningful. And they're like, whoa.
This is a really weird thing. Like, I don't like small talk at all. In fact, I really don't tolerate it.
I'm not very good. Like, someone asked me what... I don't really like talking about myself, which some people who listen to this might be like, who know me are like, no, that's rubbish. Like, I like talking about subjects that interest me.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think that gets mistaken, but I don't really like, if someone asks me what I did at the weekend, honestly, I'd rather they punch me in the head.
Yeah.
Like, it's painful to me. Like when I go back home after this trip and people at work are going to be like, how was your trip? Tell me all about it. I'm like, no, I don't want to. But if they're like, I don't know, ask me something about coaching, or like if I was like, oh, I was on a podcast and they want to talk, like, what was the subject matter? And we get into the weeds about that. I'd much rather talk about that. I really struggle to talk about like the small talk of like, what did you do at the weekend? Like, you know,
I think
tell me about your family.
There's a natural reason. I'm going to find this because this is, do you know who Timothy Leary is?
No.
He's kind of like the provocateur about psychedelics in the 60s. So he's responsible for the Harvard study, the Good Friday study, that like just turned the whole world upside down with psychedelics. He's basically the reason why they became massively illegal in the 60s because of what he was kind of doing. And he's famous for his, like, probably his most famous quote is like, drop out, tune in, or tune in, drop out kind of deal. Yeah, that's like his most famous one. But he has one on small talk. This is probably, this could be like one of the most fascinating kind of quotes. I wonder if I have the whole quote here.
It's not funny. You were earlier talking about training yourself and training yourself as a human. I've had to train myself with small talk. So I don't just ask people to punch me in the head instead, but I have had to like come up with like trained lines, which I then feed myself to like deal with small talk.
Yeah.
So I normally, when someone asks me what I did at the weekend, I pick one thing to share. Like I do it. It's weird insight into my brain. Everyone's going to be like, this guy's maniac. But like on a Sunday night, I come up with what I'm gonna like. Come up with my answer when I go to the office to what did you do at the weekend. I'm like, right, pick a thing you did, say what you liked about it, and then ask them what they did. And that is like my response every time. So every person, I say the same thing.
Do you know what I think you're doing from a behavior perspective?
Sure. No.
You're rewarding people for engaging with you like that. Like you're feeding the response.
Yeah, because if I just object, it, like they get like, you know, it's a bit like the compliment thing. Again, when someone gives me a compliment, I used to be like, no, blah, blah, blah. And what I learned through, I can't remember who I learned this from, but it was like, by saying no, I'm basically telling them they're wrong. So they get a really negative feedback loop. And I don't want that. I don't want them to be like,
no, but
I just don't believe often what they're telling me. So that's why I came up with the, right, I need to like, thank you very much. I really appreciate it as my stock response, because it's like, it acknowledges that they've seen something. I say thank you.
It's very polite.
Sure. But it also feeds into they wanted to give me something, and I've just rejected. It's like getting a present and be like, no.
Do you know what I think? And maybe this is like socially unacceptable, but I think we talked about this the other day when I had a problem getting compliments too. I was like, I put my head down and I just kind of like, it make me super uncomfortable.
Yeah, I liked your theory on this.
Right? And then until somebody gave me a genuine compliment that was very specific, and I went, oh, thank you. Like, you noticed what I was doing. Yeah. And what I understood immediately was like, oh, I don't like fake compliments.
Yeah, but
I don't like features of politeness. And to kind of like expand that a little bit, I think I don't think people are being honest when I think most of the time I think it's fake. I think it's like a passive aggressive society. You watch like Mean Girls and they're like, oh, that's a cute whatever. And you're like, it's not that. I don't think that people are that ingenuine, but I do think people are just like, I mean, I'll read this quote and then you'll understand like this perspective I think is pretty accurate.
For sure. I definitely agree with that. I think a part of that, I do think sometimes people are being genuine. But I do think some of it's down to me, the fact that I don't, there's only a few things that I actually think I'm good at.
Yeah.
So often I'm just kind of like, it's rare that someone will come and give me feedback or compliment for that. And then I'll be like,
give you a compliment that you might not realize. When you come into a room, you settle you have like a very calming effect on the room. And it's not anything that you're doing. It's probably like your confidence or your excitement to be engaged and be there. It's not even anything that you do. It's just, and it's reciprocal, because I see how other people respond to you, and they respond the same way.
Really?
You come into a room and people relax a little bit.
Okay.
Which is a really interesting thing.
I've seen it one-to-one. I didn't really appreciate the room thing. I know when I've always had this weird thing. Thank you, by the way. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Yeah, I've had this thing like in coaching one-to-one. I like, it always happened in my PTs. It's part of the reason I wanted to get more into the emotional, mental side of coaching. That's why I've started the new business and retraining and all that kind of stuff. I think it's a natural thing I do have, but I'd be doing a PT and someone start telling me everything. And I know a lot of PTs will identify with this, right? They're, you kind of create a safe space where they feel safe and seen, and people start opening up. But it would happen with me constantly.
Really? I think you've gotten tattooed. Mm-hmm. Do you know how much you talk to your tattoo artist?
I don't say anything to mine.
Oh, you don't?
No, I'm just there in a book or something.
Oh, dude. And this is essentially kind of what you're going through is micro torture. And then most tattoo artists will tell you, like, dude, people just start talking about insane things. They just like open up, because essentially you're just like, and I think with exercise, you're doing the same thing.
Maybe,
do it in the sauna. Next time you're in the sauna, sit with people and just watch how many people want to get out of there. That
makes a lot of sense. Maybe it's like hot ones.
Exactly. Yeah, it's the same thing. I was so uncomfortable that I spilled the beans.
Yeah.
So this is the Timothy Leary quote, and it has to do with like this scene about being in an elevator. He says, but what if that girl in the elevator and the balding man who walks past your cubicle at work are thinking the same thing? Who knows what you might learn from taking a chance on a conversation with a stranger? Everyone carries a piece of the puzzle. Nobody comes into your life by mere coincidence. Trust your instincts, do the unexpected, find the others. He's talking about small talk, because like nobody gives a fuck what the weather is. It's the most disrespectful thing to human connections that you could do. You'd be like, the weather, it's really crazy.
I really like a quote by that. That's really cool.
Yeah, it's like, and then like he's talking about this, like this ability for humans to get deep really, really quickly. Mm-hmm. He goes on later in that quote, and I think he's just like, man, isn't it mad? Like when you're crying, you feel like this. Like when you're just in a madness, and you're like talking to a stranger, and you just open up with just the most insane, deep subject, and you go, what you're avoiding in the discomfort of getting rejected, you also lose in the ability to connect deeply with people.
Yeah, maybe it's...
Not saying you should go to work and be like, well, I'm the fucking weird dude. But
yeah. Well, that's kind of, yeah. I think most people are aware by now. But
if you don't know what I'm like by now, get the fuck out.
Yeah, exactly. Like I turn all the lights off. It's a weird thing. I don't know why I'm sharing this podcast, but I turn the overhead lights off in the office I'm in. I have a little lamp, and people walk in and be like, "What's going on in this weird cave?" Yeah. And I'm like, I like struggle with it, but so they kind of know.
Yeah.
But I think that perhaps this is a bit of a like social construct where we're like, don't want to overshare with strangers, even though, you know, that's kind of, we're kind of maybe built to or something. I don't know. It's not a fully formed thought, but it's just something as you were talking that kind of came up for me.
So some of we talked about this just outside, like some of the realities where people like, you know, they have something super traumatic happen to them, therefore they kind of just lose all of the apologetics involved in being a social
I definitely
animal.
overshared a lot, like when I went through some stuff, like I'd be like, oh, and I don't know why I just told this stranger
sometimes
that.
vomit, but like I think in the other way that it goes, sometimes you recognize like, man, I don't care about what you're talking about right now. And I've seen it play out in a positive way where I just like will stop, and I don't do it to be rude, but you know, I have some friends that will just talk some shit, and I was like, I got to stop you. Like, I don't care. Like, I got to be honest. Like, you know, and sometimes I have to apologize later because it was a bit rude, but sometimes I was like, I literally am like, I'm not thinking about that right now.
Yeah.
But in the same sense, some people I've been in a very like ordinary sense, and I've had people like affect me deeply by like going, hey, what about this? And I'm like, oh, weird. Like, thank you so much for like not just stating the obvious or asking like trivial, you know, trivial. Oh, here's a perfect example. In Hungarian, you don't ask how somebody is without a real answer. if you ask how somebody is doing, you have to mean it because you'll get a real answer.
Yeah, people get that with me whether they like it or not. I think
like
that
that.
this is a signal that maybe there is some autism in me, but like people ask how I am and I tell them exactly how I am, and I
Not
realize,
good.
no, I've definitely had that before, and I'm like, oh no, people don't. So again, I've had to like train myself to be like, yeah, I'm cool. How are you?
In Hungarian, it's nincio, and that's like one of the first things that I learned was not good.
Nice.
Nincio. You're just supposed to, and then they're supposed to follow up with why not, and then you have to explain.
I didn't
oh,
realize
this
it was
is
a
what
bad
happened.
thing to like be really honest with people. I
don't
was just
think
took
it
it
is.
super logically.
Yeah.
I was just like, well, they've asked, so they must be interested. It wasn't until like I heard Tom Segura's bit on it where he's like goes to the bank and the guy asks him how he's doing, or he says how are you doing, and he's like the guy tells him, and he's just like, you have 2 responses. That bit,
But that's
honestly,
such an
I
American
was like,
take.
Damn it.
Our Hungarian coach was like, she had to warn us, like, hey, if you ask how somebody's doing, just be prepared to get a real answer. She's like, it's not like America where if you give a real answer, they're very weirded out. You're like, you ask how you're doing in America, and it's kind of like a what's up. And if somebody's like, well, this happened, and at work I got fired, people would be like, dude. But really, you asked how ingenuine is it that you asked a question and you don't want an answer? How are you is not rhetorical.
Yeah.
That's how weird.
I only ask it when I'm interested.
Yeah,
if I'm not, I'll just say good morning, good afternoon.
Yeah. How you doing? It's like and then you get it like, oh, not well. I'm like, I didn't want to hear. I don't care. But it made me reflect on the politeness in society that is blocking us from having like probably better connections. I think like I'm not saying that you have to talk about the insanity that matter turns into light, or so you have to go down some.
But I think it's boundaries is something that I've spent a lot of time practicing and learning about, and I think it's interesting that you set that boundary with when you're not interested in something. And me and a friend have actually done this. We'll send each other stuff via WhatsApp, and a couple of times I'm like, dude, I've got so much on, I do not have the brain space for this. And I'm like, look, if I ever send you anything that you also don't have the brain space for, or aren't interested in, because I know that similar to you, like if I'm learning about something, it's front of mind, and most of the people around me are going to get some point a monologue about that thing. I'm totally okay if they're like, dude, I love that you're passionate about this, but can we maybe like not, or can you give me clip notes?
Sending quasi-offensive memes to friends.
yeah, exactly.
That's I think. I mean, it's an interesting part. Why I think it's probably common that we hit on these things, interesting enough, because me and Keegan talk about this all the time. Like the small talk, the weird stuff is like, as a coach, you really have to learn very quickly how to affect people in a there is no politeness is not necessarily a good coaching technique. Like candor is really kind of like where it's all about. And what's interesting, I think, about how the profession relay, and probably what you shared about like just not being able to shut it off for like people who didn't ask for it, is that, man, if I want to get good at something, I do it all the time. And what I think is interesting, maybe somebody could be disagreeing, they'll yell at me, later or privately or whatever. And I'm not saying like I've learned that it is ineffective to coach a certain way, but I learned that probably like you did by doing it in circumstances that didn't pay off. Like there's no great coaches in a comment section on Instagram. They're just not, either if your opinion is valuable, I want to keep it valuable, so I'm not going to fucking throw it off everywhere. That, it's the milk cow kind of analogy, but also I think I do need to practice, and this is where it gets interesting, where like how I knew kind of maybe Aaron was like a good match, because not only did we find out very quickly that a coaching relationship is probably not that helpful for a real relationship, but she did want me to get better at it, and therefore there was feedback for like developing it. That I think is like invaluable to the process. And I think there's just, I don't know, with coaching, it happens in the weirdest places that you don't see. And I see it now. I see where it does happen. The better I get at it, or the more that I do it. But no one teaches you those things.
No.
They teach you that exercise and this, and they don't teach you actually when it happens is like a half an hour after a session ends, and that is when somebody's open to receiving information, or before, or whatever. And you're like, instead we're just supposed to be like, I am a bot for knowledge and this is where you're supposed to get it.
Yeah.
I think the big trick with coaching, at least for me, I think the part that I get paid for isn't the knowledge that I have, it's the placement of when I can like put it in.
Yeah, 100%.
It's just timing. Like that is a weird, it sounds like it's not that valuable, but timing is kind of everything.
Yeah, I think it's so multifaceted. And actually pay you a compliment. One of the things that you said that resonated with me really hard was like, positive reinforcement isn't all that valuable for me. And look, don't get me wrong, I know that positive reinforcement is like, I think every human, I've had people in my corner before having my back, and there's something about that which is incredibly freeing, and you feel like you can go and do anything. So I understand the importance of that. But again, when I say to someone, hey, I made this thing, what do you think? And they're like, it's great. It's like I think you talked about it on the podcast, and it's like, that's so unhelpful. And I appreciate they're just trying to be nice, or they're trying to give me confidence, or whatever it is. But I would much rather them be like, actually, do you know what could make this great? Or like, I see where you're going, but it's not quite there yet, or something like that. Some positive feedback. Don't just be like, no, it's shit. Like, obviously that's just like, I don't need people to be mean.
It's garbage, man.
Yeah. But like and actually this was one of the things that really helped me unlock some of my values. Like, and again, if people aren't aware of their values, I highly recommend it's something that I have a few tools on. I'm not trying to sell my services, but like, go and work with someone to find your values. If you don't know them, there's loads of resources to how to do it, and you can get books on it and all that kind of stuff. But like, if you don't understand your values, I genuinely feel like you're kind of like you're in a fight with your hands behind your back, or you're walking up a hill without a map, or whatever analogy suits you best. But I really that comment in particular really was one of the things that unlocks one of my core values, and top of the change is honesty. Like, honesty for me is like the most important thing. I would rather you upset me and were honest with me than sugarcoated it, and because I just can't like, it hurts my head. And when I'm kind of, and you know, I think, again, story I'm probably selling myself, but I think I'm fairly intuitive, pretty intuitive guy, and I can kind of tell when people are lying to me. I think most people can. I think maybe some are more tuned to it than others. Again, that's, you know, different spectrum or what have you. But and it winds me up so much when I know someone's lying to me. It either upsets me greatly, I either feel very sad about it, or I'm really annoyed about it, dependent on what that relationship holds in my life. But I don't. And again, I think it's just how my brain works. I don't understand it. So again, I have a list of all my values, but that one in particular really struck me. And I think a coaching relationship does need to be an honest relationship.
Yeah, for sure.
Obviously, timing. When do you say that piece of information? Do they need to hear it right now? Is it something they need to hear now? When does that come into play? But often, if your coach isn't honest with you, I think, like, you know, that's, again, I spoke about my therapist a fair bit, but like, that's the thing. I'm like, honestly, I want you to be 100% honest with me all the time. Yeah. And even if it's hard to hear, she's obviously really good at delivering that.
It's so hard to hear. I don't think people understand. Well, I mean, honesty and truth is a virtue in most societies, every religion. Truth is kind of the ideal. It is obviously in kind of like simpatico with love and all of these like huge forgiveness, all of these massive subjects. And I agree with you. The value structure, in fact, somebody on our forum a couple months back was asking about probably something that was fairly benign, and I used it for, you know, my own segue into what I thought was the real problem. And it was like, you know, perhaps if I can summarize it in kind of it was a very long post, but it was kind of like, this is what I'm dealing with, injuries, this stuff. And I took the fucking hard right and went, you know, here's what I see. You probably have never established values. And that's the first part, but it's not the last part, because like you said, I think values are like a good filter in a jungle, right? They're a heuristic that you run life sources through in order to get what you need out
That's
of
why
it.
sometimes people really struggle with decision making, because they don't know the filter to run it through.
Exactly. And I say, like, it's not what you should do, but it will tell you in the best case scenario what should happen, right? Like, so honesty is a very I would say it's like, on average, it's probably the most quoted as honesty as a value that I have. That being said, I think where people don't understand is that we also have necessities, and if we don't get what we need, you'll erode your values in order to get to them. That's why it's a filter reflection process. And funny, like I gave kind of like this summary in this post, so I'll do it here because I think it's really important. And you could use, there's a bunch of different people that talk about the 6 necessities, or sometimes there's 7, and people have like different ones, but they're all kind of the same. And honestly, I think Tony Robbins were the best because they're almost neutral. And what he actually kind of came to the conclusion of is that, and you can look these up, I can remember, but I don't want to like go through the pain of trying to like explain, because they sound really kind of like neutral, as they should. Most people, once they list them out, can put them in order for what's important. And if you do that, if you're accurate about it, because love or connection is one of them, uncertainty, all of these things. Some of them don't seem that important, but I think when you recognize the word, you go, oh, that's important to me. That means I'm like, subconsciously, I'm probably seeking it. So for me, they're like giving and like all of these, like what people would think are just positive social aspects.
Yeah, sometimes when people go through value exercises, and I definitely did this when I first did it, I wrote down what I think I should have rather than what I actually value.
For not what, exactly. It's like what I have been conditioned to respond to.
What I think other people would like would expect me to write. Yeah.
When I finally ranked my necessities, I was like, oh God, I have the potential to be a real fucking dick. Because I saw like significance and uncertainty are at my top. They're just right at the top. And I was like, man, given the wrong scenario, I could be a nightmare of a person.
Is that not everyone though?
Totally. Everybody has. And this is like, okay, I'll give you an example. A lot of people think it's cute to put like love as my first one, and giving, because contribution is one of them and connection is the other. So connection and those seem like I'm just a good person. You're like, but imagine the time where, honesty is your value and love is your necessity, and you're not getting what you need. You will be dishonest in order to get what you need. You'll erode your value to fulfill your necessity. And if you don't understand the exchange, you will kind of tear yourself apart, because you're not living up to your value. And it's because you're not aware of the necessity that you need. And some people are aware of the necessity, and so they could just go, oh, I'm not getting this, and this leads to the honesty.
Yeah, not having their needs met.
Totally. And this happens, if you're in a loving relationship that becomes unloving, you can, in most people, this happens kind of subconsciously, and you're like, and it's only like a kind of a lack of communication. One person shifts away, the other person shifts away, and then you start eroding the necessities, because you facilitate them for other people as well. And if you can't get that contribution or that love or that significance, or feel like you're having an impact or uncertainty, man, honesty becomes the least important thing to you, and you won't understand why it's happening. In the same sense, less serious, but still like very relevant to coaching, a lot of people say that it's important to be healthy, but they haven't put it in through the filter of their value to get their necessity. So I think in this context, somebody was talking about, being older, being injured, they always start, and then they just like, it just becomes unimportant. And you're like, you literally just haven't run it through the right necessity. And you're like, you've mentioned your family, but you haven't connected the dots on like why being capable and fit and having longevity is important to the thing. So therefore it never takes priority. So you just like, you have to match these things appropriately. And again, this is an action, but it's really just like I would call it a contemplation that needs to occur, right? And probably in a dark room where nobody is talking to you, and you can really project the mental image, and it's painful, of what would happen if you just keep continuing what you're doing.
Yeah.
Like, just project your life right now forward.
Yeah, I see it as an honest conversation. I think that's maybe what, like, as you were talking about, I'm like, no, honesty is my necessity. Like, honestly, it trumps everything for me most of the time. But, and actually, I didn't finish my compliment. That's one of the reasons I appreciate like our conversations, because I know I'm always going to get your honest take. Like,
appreciate it.
You will be always honest with me. But like, I do. Yeah, I think that it's an honest conversation either with yourself or with a trained professional, like someone who's going to hold the space for you and ask you difficult questions and that you trust and that you can have that. And something else that came to mind as you were talking about that is that sometimes it's, and I quite like this quote, I don't know who it came from, but like, it's not always the message. Most of the time it's the messenger. How many times have you been told something by like your spouse or someone that you're like, I don't want to hear that from you, but then you go and speak to someone that you really respect or that you like, you know, idolize or whatever, and you hear it from them and you're like, oh my God, I need to change all this stuff.
He's a genius.
Yeah, exactly. And then your spouse is in the corner being like, I said that to you like 4 times. And that's where I see the value of the coach as well. Like, people talk about, oh, you need, you know, if we had better friends, all this kind of stuff. It's like, but sometimes they can't, you're not going to hear them because you both used to play sport against each other and you've got this competitive edge or whatever, or you know, you have these interpersonal dynamics that last generations. That I've got some friends that I love dearly, but we'll have conversations and I'm like, I just can't, like, as much as I try to. And I love what you were talking about, you know, that quote about people come along, give you pieces of the puzzle. Well, that's how I interpreted it from conversation, and you don't meet people by accident. I love that. And sometimes some of the things that friends have said to me in throwaway comments have like unlocked stuff or been really insightful. But yeah, I think sometimes having a coach that you are, also that's where, coming back to what you were talking about payment. If I pay someone for their time, I'm going to be like super invested in that time, in that outcome, and I'm going to hear them and I'm going to listen to them most of the time. Sometimes you kind of get, again, when you don't gel, you're like, I don't feel like I'm getting the value here. But again, that comes back to values and like, are you getting someone that who's gonna, if I didn't go see a professional that wasn't honest with me, or I felt it was trying to manipulate me, even if it was for the right reasons, that wouldn't jive with me, and I'd get really, you know, I'd not want, massively.
And I want to be like, I appreciate that. I honesty is, you know, I have a whole, when I write out values, or I make my clients write out values, I make them personalize it to themselves, right? So like, I want it to not just be a word that you can like, you really need to like gear it towards your situation, because the more specific the heuristic, the better it's going to play as a filtration system. Because when you run into the problem that has no answer, you're like, it should reveal a path. It's never, the weird part, it's never the easy path. Your value is not to make life easier. That's what people, I think, get wrong. Because think about how hard it is to be, it's very hard to be honest with people. And to be honest, I'm only honest to people I care about. I could fucking care less if I lie to somebody I could give a shit less about. And I'll be polite in that case. Like if somebody's like, am I doing good? And I'm like, you're doing awesome. You're great.
I'm the same, actually. As much as it pains me, like I often get quite conflicted about this, because I do want to be honest with people, but I also don't want to hurt people's feelings. And I will be honest with people I care about, and sometimes it goes well, sometimes it doesn't go well.
Totally.
But for those that I'm not as I try and care about everyone to a degree. You know, I'm not saying I hate these people, but it's more that I just don't have a vested interest, as much of an interest in their future, wherever we're acquaintances, we're not like deep friends or family or what have you. But also I sometimes, and again I wrestle with this, I sometimes don't say stuff when I'm like, will they hear it? Because I think you can sometimes say something that, or also where is that coming from for me? Because this is, I believe this. Is this my story? Is this their story? Do I feel that this is going to aid them in the outcome that they're after?
Or is it for me?
Is it for me? Yeah. And that's a distinction as well I try and hold.
I've been in so many instances that honesty did not, there was immediate backlash I think in the long run, the investment strategy was correct. But the damage up front to true honesty, to people who deserve it and warrant it and who you're willing to like share the energy with, I would stand by it's the reason why it's the thread that binds all major religions, is because it's probably the most important aspect of human nature, is your ability to tell the truth despite the consequences of it.
Yeah.
Like the truth will set you free. It is so accurate and so painful at the same time, especially when you turn it on yourself. And like, we all lie to ourselves. That is the most fascinating thing, is I can put honesty as this virtue, and then I can, in that same hour, ignore it completely, right? It just like bypass. And that's because we are a series of complex personalities all geared into like one body. And so although what I think we're really trying to do is we're trying to pull the threads to the part of ourselves that we want to like come out, right? It's like, it's the reveal part, the reduction into, I have a part of me that is angry and resentful and bitter. I have a part of me that seeks revenge and that actually gets a thrill off of harming other people. That exists inside of me. I mean, like what the old saying, we are multitudes, is unfairly accurate. But I can't imagine that I go, that's a bad investment though, to put energy into that part of myself. So I'm really just trying to like, the part of me that's forgiving, the part of me that can see past people's deficiencies, part of me that is honest but polite. Like I'm trying to like pull these parts up, and man, it gets harder and harder to realize them. And I think that's what most people don't realize. I have a thing that I'll probably put, I wrote it a while ago, but it's on kind of this subject, and I haven't put it out yet because, I know the lesson, but I haven't been able to, I'm walking it, and I haven't finished it yet. It goes back, I know what I'm supposed to do, but my head keeps switching.
I only laugh because that's what I feel like about 90% of the stuff that
I'm in the middle, and it's one of the, I would call it, it's probably one of the hardest lessons I've ever had to learn. And I knew it was a lesson. I could tell other people that it was a lesson. I could identify the lesson. I could understand the attribute that I needed in order to be successful at the lesson. And then the lesson the test presented itself, and I write the answer down, and I somehow can't like finish it. And that's how deeply troubling the hardest problems are. But I keep referring back to what I hope my values can be. And going like, no, this is the thing. And it's so weird how you fight yourself on these things. It was like an incredibly hard year. This past year has been like incredibly difficult, but really uncomfortable. And it provided some of the weirdest things. So you mentioned something that I thought was interesting, because I do think like, I don't want it to come out or like get perceived that I'm like all hardcore all the time, because I think positive feedback is important at the right moments.
Yeah, for sure.
Even for ourselves. And I like honesty. I like truth. But to be honest, about it's probably like a year ago, I got an opportunity to write for this magazine that came out. And two artists that I like respect almost more than anybody called me personally, and we talked for 90 minutes about this concept, and they wanted me to be the only words that were in this magazine.
Sick.
Everything else was a photo. And I was like, oh my God, like this is crazy. I'm like, yeah, okay, like I like the concept, I like everything about it. I've always wanted to work with these guys in a very specific fashion. And so I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll like brew on it. So like a couple weeks went by, and I'm like, the ideas are pretty complex. And I was like, I got nothing, like literally nothing. And then one of them reached out, he's like, hey, do you think you could have that wrapped up by like 4 or 5 days? And I was like, fuck. So I just like started cracking at it. And I like rewrote it. And I was like, oh my God, I have nothing. Like,
really?
Yeah. And I told him, I was like, I gotta be honest, dude. I'm going to give you something, but it's like not ready yet. Like give me some feedback so I can make sure, because it's so fucking hard. Well, I sent it, and I was just like, send. I hear nothing. Crickets. months go by, 6 months go by,
Oh, no.
8 months go by, 9 months. I haven't talked to this person. And of course, I'm like, they don't like my stuff anymore.
Yeah,
they
yeah.
don't like it. They're not, they're not asking for anything.
It's funny
I was
how
like,
we do that. Eh?
man, I super fucked that up. And I was just like, why didn't you just tell me that it sucks? Just tell me that it sucks.
Yeah.
Be honest with me. And I was just like, a year goes by and then I get something in the mail. And I was like, what the fuck? And I open it up and it's the printed, finished work. They didn't change anything. They didn't edit it. They just put it in there. And they're like, it's perfect how it is. I was like, for a fucking year. and to be fair, I don't like it that much. But in a year that I've had like a lot of difficulty, that almost saved my life. Like that thing showing up and giving me a positive feedback when I probably, and that's how delayed it is. A year of thinking that I fucked up.
It's funny how your brain goes
Totally.
there, isn't it?
2 artists that I respect more than anything, I was like humiliated by it. Like literally humiliated by it. When everything was actually okay. And then in that year, trials and what you would call tribulations come by, and I have like almost nothing that is like keeping me afloat. And this package shows up, and that's the positive. That's how powerful, accurate, positive feedback can
100%.
be. It can like save your life.
Yeah, totally.
So I don't want to like think that it's not. It's the most useful thing when it's accurate and it's a necessity. But man, it's really. I think if I could summarize coaching, it's being a good coach is really understanding that balance of when and how the feedback needs to be. Do they need negative? Do they need positive? When's the time? When does it need to happen?
Yeah, no, it's a really good distinction. I'm really glad you brought that up because it's so true that I do believe a lot in giving people confidence. And again, it's about what do people need? What does that person need? Sometimes people don't need that. Sometimes people, don't need loads of honesty because they're so tough on themselves, and actually they need more. They need to be freed from their own stuff. Yeah,
and a lot of time I might test people because I don't want to invest in somebody who needs constant coddling. So I might be very harsh up front on purpose because I want to see to make sure this person is made of something.
Yeah, but that fits. I think that fits your style, right? Like everyone's different, but that's the point. Like that's, I think sometimes we're like, oh, they're a good coach, and I'm not. There are degrees of what's the word I'm looking for here? But there are degrees here in terms of coaching, people being good coaches and better coaches and stuff. Yeah. But sometimes it's just a fit. It's like, are you a good coach for this person?
100%.
Which is why I always come back to that. And something else I just wanted to really quickly add you're talking about some of the more challenging parts of ourselves, and Jung talks about it as the shadow, and there's other things like human design where we kind of shadow self. And I think that it isn't good or bad traits. Actually, it's like the other side of the expression of it. Sometimes like if you're like combative or whatever it was that you said, I forget, but like that actually is really positive in these domains. Like it's what makes you good at X and Y and Z. It's just that I always kind of like my nerdy kind of basic brain turns it into your superpowers are also your kryptonite. If you go and use your superpower, like, I don't know, again, silliness, but like Superman goes and uses his laser vision to cut a cat out of a tree, probably not the best use of that. Like you could fly and just bring it out, right? So it's about figuring out what trait you can use in the right environment to get the right
that
thing.
was really basically what The Boys is about, the show, right? It's just like this absolute abuse of power.
Yeah.
Abuse of talent.
Yeah, and it's about, I've always thought it's I have this skill set. Sometimes I use it in the wrong manner, and when it does, it kind of tends to hurt me or someone else.
Yeah.
But if I can harness that in the right way, and again, I think that's a big part of what coaching is. It's about having someone that can help you refine what you have to offer in the best domains as possible, and not just kind of like going around using your laser vision for the wrong tasks.
Yeah, it's kind of weird because I didn't even know this till like last week. And it's one of the reasons why like I'm hesitant to go into the coaching of coachings space, but that's like honestly that's probably where I'm most suited, is to like help identify the major themes of this process and then apply it, because what's interesting, so I learn by teaching other people, obviously.
Yeah.
So I'm constantly looking for the way that I can get the most feedback, and that I'm looking for the scale of it in reality. Like I wanted to get more fit, right? So what's the best way to figure out what works best is teach a bunch of things that already kind of work for me, and then I'll see the reaction and know, okay, this definitely works, that doesn't work. So I'm constantly like feeding and getting feedback. I usually tell people, if you spend time here, you're like, just come show me something later. Like that's how you prove the efficacy, or that's how you show gratitude, is like give something back in the form of a lesson or something. Well, with coaches, it's the same thing. Like instead of just teaching people to get fitness and expression or all of that stuff, you teach coaches that teach other people, and now it's an exponent. And I didn't realize that that's what we were doing essentially through all of this stuff, was basically giving big major models that can be distributed to people who know how to use it. Yeah, it's like a few people who coach themselves will get some like use out of this conversation, but in reality, coaches are going to be the main people that go, oh, that I didn't, we're signaling something very specific to somebody who deals with human nature in a certain way. So I didn't know this until a couple of weeks ago, because Sam, or actually just till last week, because he mentioned it. Sam was like, he heard me on a podcast, and someone was like, would you coach somebody in CrossFit? And I was like, I mean, it's not that interesting, like the sport itself. And therefore the charge would go along with that. To solve somebody's problem would have to be worth the money. So instead of like, the coaching fee of like $200 a month, I was like, I would just charge $12,000 to prep somebody for a thing, because that way I would be interested in it. Can I get in? The only reason I'm interested in it is because of how committed that person is to me. That's the interesting part.
Yeah.
Well, Sam heard this, and he spent a year and he saved $12,000. So he came here, and Aaron had been coaching him on nutrition and some other things, and then he was dealing with some other coaches in CrossFit, and he had some good stuff and some bad stuff happen. Well, he shows up in town because he was driving through to meet me and Aaron in person, and he showed up, and I watched him do one session. Like I watched him train a little bit, talked to him and Bailey, and he was going to ask me to coach him. I didn't know this, but I noticed something about him. I was like, you should just move here. You should just come work here. And he's like, really? I'm like, yeah. So that's all I said to him. Then I went back upstairs. 6 months later, he sold his gym and just moved down here, and with no concept of what's happening. And he's like, I was just going to pay you to coach me, but then you were like, you can come work here. And I was like, now I pay him. I was like, I got the raw end of this deal.
Yeah, definitely. I'm a big fan of that. I think it's really cool. Like, I've said this to you before, but like effort for me is really a currency. Like, I get a real kick out of clients who like put a lot of effort in. I'm like, oh cool, if you show effort, I'm like, I'm gonna double it. Like, I really kind of go in on that kind of stuff. Same in most of my relationships actually, and I just think that's really cool. Like, Sam's a cool dude, and just to kind of, there's not a lot of people I think that would do that. And I've kind of done some
super uncommon
similar things where I've kind of like jacked in a job and kind of veered left just on a whim to some people. And I think I've shared this with you, and I get the feedback of, oh, that's really brave. And I've like, I don't understand. I've never understood the comment, because I'm like, I didn't know what else. Like, it seemed the most logical. Like, what else would I do? And I haven't actually asked.
It's a natural sense to you, a natural inclination.
Yeah. You're like, when I quit my job, my tech job, I was relatively comfortable with earning decent money, and I was like, I'm going to basically go and be a CrossFit coach and not any like apprentice, and not really earning money for 6 months, and live off my savings in London of all places.
Yeah.
And everyone was like, you're insane, or you're brave. And I was like, just feels right. This seems to be the thing to do. Like, what else am I going to do?
I think most people's perception of like cowardice and bravery are they're really based on incomplete endpoints, incomplete flow of the narrative, right? So most people think like, oh, if I just quit my job and I tried to live my dream and I failed, I would be homeless and a meth head, or like they jump to some very strange conclusion. And I think they don't really think through the fact that, man, there's a lot of safety nets, and actually things our discomfort is actually building the narrative for us so that we don't do it.
Yeah, I mean, I like, I almost got close to not having the safety nets. And it kind of went pretty sideways.
Yeah, for sure. It does happen.
Yeah, and I kind of ran back to what I knew for safety, and actually really was kind of disappointed. A lot of people would be like, be kind to yourself, but I was really disappointed in myself for doing that.
Yeah.
And then I think it was actually something Sam said to me, and I hope I'm not misquoting him, but he was talking about, I think, Post Malone, and he was like, the guy kind of basically was just like, I'm just going to be a rapper, that's all I really want to be, and that's all, like, don't care if I don't get paid and I live on a sofa or something like that. And he basically put into words kind of how I felt about it. I'm like, I don't care if I don't make any money from coaching and I don't end up being successful. Or like, a lot of the reason I want to have a house or a family, there is a big internal reason actually for those things, like obviously, but also the reason I went and bought a flat and did some other stuff was because it's what I thought I should do. And I'm like, actually, I don't care what I have to sacrifice now as long as I get to do what I feel like I'm meant to do. Like, I think that there's seems to be a lot of discourse online about people not having purpose and fulfillment in life, and I'm like, I feel the most purposeful and the most fulfilled doing this work of anything else that I've ever done, and why trade that for comfort, or for I've done that and I feel so terrible, and like it contributed to what was closely among some other things, a mental breakdown, I think, for me. Like, I had some hard situations that were just compounded by the fact that I wasn't feeling fulfilled or valuable because I wasn't living my purpose or what I felt was on purpose.
Yeah, that's dude, I mean, you spoke about so many things that are like, I'm not going to say triggering because that's usually taken as negative, but things ping off in your kind of thought process. Like, the disappointment in yourself is like a constant, and I know it's unfair, actually. Like, I know it's unrealistic to be disappointed with myself, but also I think if that wasn't there, I wouldn't have the pressure. Like you're saying, like the counteraction to maybe something that people perceive as a negative or a positive can become a negative. That really is what pressurizes the system. And I've just probably recently accepted the disappointment as the part that is positive, that is why I push, that's why I don't stop, that's why it's not good enough. It's like a sense of perfectionism, but I don't think it's unrealistic or that it hurts me in a certain way. That one is really resonates in a way that I think it's not that it doesn't hurt anymore that it exists. You just like you find, it sounds really weird, comfort in it. You're like, that's why it's there. It's not there to annoy me or to make me feel disappointed. It's there because I can see the potential of what I can do. And if I stop seeking it, that's the real disappointment. That's the real failure, is like giving up completely. Any kind of retreat to safety is just a temporary kind of refuge into the bigger goal. And the bigger goal, man, admittedly, I can't see it yet.
No,
it's because I don't want to make it smaller than it is. And it's not me. I think I was really impressed. We went to the Vatican on Easter Sunday, which is fucking crazy.
Yeah, I bet.
And just like walking around, cool art, cool. And then St. Peter's Basilica, I walked in and they were, it's not done yet, so they're still like building part of this marble column in the back, and it was blocked off, and then they're restoring a bunch of different places, so we couldn't see the whole thing. And it dawned on me that at some point somebody had a vision for this place that was so big that it would have to be restored before it was finished. That is like a timeline that made me change my thinking. I was like, man, I was constantly thinking like I have to be the one to experience the fruits of like my labor or whatever. But in reality, the bigger picture, the things that serve the bigger picture are bigger than your lifetime if they really are meaningful. And that's like, why not aim for those? You're like, why not carry on something that's so important that somebody else can catch on and carry it on for you as well? And I was like, at first that like felt egotistical, to be fair. Like I felt like, oh man, what the fuck? Like did I just do a bump of coke and now I believe in myself? Or like, but in reality, it's just like, no, I just got a glimpse of something that I think is like actual potential.
Yeah.
And some people are lucky to see that right off the get-go.
It's tricky. Like I struggle a bit sometimes with ego because you do get this, but I think it's there's two sides to that, like the shadow side, right? Like without ego, like healthy ego, like spurs you on to do big things. If you didn't have a healthy ego, people wouldn't strive for anything and we wouldn't build anything. And I think there's an element of contribution there. Like I think that we're hardwired to do it in some way. Like our as human beings, we strive to do these things, and sometimes they're just for ourselves and sometimes they're for the collective. And I think sometimes being for ourselves can be for the collective, and it's not, it isn't an either or cut and dry thing like most things. I think, again, it's perspective and what it's done for. Some people will see people's efforts and be like, that's completely for them, and other people will see them and be like, revere them because and ultimately it's, we don't often get to choose how people see our actions. That's kind of other people's
never
decision.
actually.
Yeah.
And it's also the least important part. Like other people's opinions of your actions are kind of, they're none of my business. Which is an interesting thought because, I think as you evolve as whatever profession, since we're talking about coaching, it really is like, I used to care deeply about what people thought about how I was coaching, as opposed to like overly emphasize the part that people cared as opposed to the outcome or as opposed to the relationship. And I think it reflected the relationship. And as I got better, that part became less important, and then this part started to flourish. And then the outcomes became so much greater than what they were, than what they could be if I was still stuck in that thing.
Yeah.
I think I could be wrong, but I think most people get very stuck right when they get to the precipice of when they could do the greatest things. And you mentioned courage, and I want to like bring it back to that because I think as a question, because I think about this, I mean, I think a lot of things often that are probably really creepy, but I often think about what is the thing that I'm not seeing in myself that is stopping me from doing what I really want. What is it? And I know I'll never be able to see it, but
I ask people.
Yeah,
it's one of the most uncomfortable questions you can ask someone. If you like, people like would rather not answer that question.
Do you know what someone told me one time? A really good friend of mine, when I asked him, like, what do you think I could like get better at? And he goes, oh, sometimes you want so badly for the story to be true that you like force it, and it changes what actually happened. And I was like, are you calling me a liar? Like, I was like, that was, and I like, at first I was like, I gotta unpack this.
Yeah.
It took me months to come to terms with what he was saying, and I think I know now what he was saying.
Yeah.
And I would have to say he was probably right.
Do you think?
Yeah, I think I know the instance that he was talking about, and I think I was trying to use a story in order to prove a point, and then what his relation to that story changed because instead of the thing being his experience, it became what I wanted it to be.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by the stories we tell ourselves.
Yeah.
I like, honestly, like Will Storr's work is so
great.
good.
Yeah.
And it could all just be stories we're telling ourselves.
Yeah.
Like everything you could put it down. We're story machines.
Yeah.
It's why we're so fascinated by video games and movies and books and like all these kind of mediums.
We don't understand anything without story, actually.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, like Joseph Campbell's work, The Hero's Journey, like everything is story related. Every movie you've ever watched, any good one, it's got the story's journey in it. You can go like look it up, like literally look at the Hero's Journey. Sorry, not the story's journey. The Hero's Journey. Apply it to any movie with a protagonist, and you'll be like, oh shit, it's the same. Like you can pick them out, like the hero meets a
Threshold Guardian,
a mentor. It's like Doc Brown, Obi-Wan Kenobi, like insert, Highlander, like.
Yeah, I mean, and it is fiction, but inherently, actually, and this is like, as a coach, you're essentially inserting yourself into somebody's story as a mentor.
100%.
Right, every single time. Or if you're a really good coach, sometimes you're the antagonist. This is hard for me to explain to people because it doesn't come out right, but if you are really really moving somebody through transformation and you're really invested in the most positive outcome that they could possibly have for themselves, it means you have to be willing to become the antagonist.
Yeah, I've actually done. This is where my coaching overlapped into relationships. I've done this with a couple of really good friends, and my sister, bless her, she's been on the end of this. But I've actually just been really mean to people on purpose, like, and it was really uncomfortable. But again, I knew it was what they needed to hear, and it shifted them and fell out and affected our relationship. And I don't do it. I don't do it intentionally because I want to hurt someone. I do it because I'm like, I know that this will make them closer to where they want to be. And I was, again, it's not right. Like, I'm not trying to excuse it and be like, yeah, well, you know, they got to the thing, so it was exactly the right thing to do. I'm kind of glad I did it. I'm not. I didn't do it. I say I did it on purpose. I unconsciously did it on purpose, if that makes sense. Like, I did it. I did it because I wanted to get there, but wasn't conscious that I was. I didn't realize why I was doing it, and it was for me, not for them. Yeah. But it kind of worked.
Same, and it was only in retrospect that I recognized what I was able to do, and in thinking of that, I worry about it also because you can see this archetypical relationship play out, as in, like, man, if I'm unwilling to make the shifts that I need to make. This sounds wooey, but the universe will provide the archetype for me to figure that out. And it makes you go, like, how fast can you learn? Like, this will save your life. The faster you can learn, the better. And unfortunately, man, the hardest lessons, they're not like learning that the stove is hot, which is like an instantaneous, I don't need to touch that anymore. It's almost like a soft boil where you're just like, I'm going to cook myself learning this one lesson.
Yeah.
The current one is difficult.
They're all difficult.
It's true.
They're all difficult. They have different degrees of difficulty. Like, that one in particular was like, did I manipulate that person? Did I, like, you know, that kind of stuff, and really question that. And I think people who do know me know that like 99% of the time it all comes from a place of, I'm trying to come from a place of good, but it made me really question my own motives and stuff. And yeah, like, you know, it's so hard to, I think, again, that's why I think coaching is great, because you're coming to me, and like, the part of my training is like being completely objective, taking myself out of it. It's nothing to do with me. Whereas my sister is like my sister, you know, when we've grown up together, I am not objective with her. I say that to her when she comes to me she wants to share something with me. I'm like, look, I'm not objective. Everything I tell you is completely biased. Yeah. I will try and be as objective as possible, but I'm not. So you will have to do a certain level of discernment to what I'm about to say to you, whether it's really right for you or not. Yeah. And I recommended her get a coach or a therapist and talk to them about it, because I cannot be biased with you. Like, cannot be unbiased with you.
It's too close, right?
It's one of the best things for our relationship. Like, we're really close now, and we talk a lot about stuff, but I think that level of honesty both ways is really important, because otherwise sometimes I am just projecting how I feel about a situation.
I think that might be a good measure of the place in your story of what you're trying to achieve will reveal, is because there is a point, and I think this is actually really true. In order to get, like, ultimately, you know, in the hero's journey would be the sword, or the chalice, or whatever the
I'd quite like a sword or a chalice.
Yeah, I like the sword. Sounds cooler. I like amulet. Like, amulet sounds cool.
Yeah.
But to get whatever you think, whatever the valuable nugget is that you're pulling out of this arc, the precipice which it becomes most important, nobody can help you. You're like, and I try to, like, pass this off on clients, is like, that what makes you, I mean, if you really read into that stuff, what makes you a hero isn't the fact that you win, it's the fact that you change.
Yeah, I can show you the path, but you've got to walk it, kind
of thing. And the transformation comes internally, and therefore the shift has to come not from the advice of somebody, it has to come on your own predilection. You have to, like, derive the answer yourself, right? And that's where, like, when people can't, I just can't seem to change my body, or it just, you know, this seems like a fairly simple problem, but it's actually deeply complex.
Yeah, it really is.
It means you've reached the part in your story where probably the shift, and if you had advice before, I would say, like, you've reached the part where you're unwilling to resolve it yourself, because that takes great transformation.
Yeah, for
very
sure.
painful.
Yeah, definitely. And it, like, always want to simplify things, and it, you know, changing your body, for instance, exercise more, eat right things, don't eat too much, like
simply.
super simple, right?
Yeah.
But actually, like, there's so many other things that can factor into that become complex, and that's where coaching can be useful, because you've got someone that's, again, more objective than you are, or your family members are.
If you just reword that, you're like, accept the challenge, slay the dragon, get the amulet, come back.
Yeah,
you're
exactly.
Like, it's super easy.
Yeah, find a mentor who can help you out as well. Like, yeah, exactly.
Like, if you really just summarize, it's easy. It's like, you know, destroy your father, Darth Vader.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
Lose a hand.
Yeah, you lose a hand.
Yeah, but after you meet Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah. All of these things, I mean, this is I think it's fascinating, because I think when you do meet real coaches, and I've been fortunate enough to meet a lot of really good coaches, they're never talking about the actual subject or the specifics. And this is what I mean by, like, what if people understood this part about it, but instead they're sold the superficial part? Because I think, and this is what, maybe it excuses my argument to going deep, my argument for, like, pretty much anything that we've discussed today is, like, the reason why I kind of excuse it and think that it's okay in the right scenarios is, like, I think if you brought people into this world and they knew that it was what it was, I think it becomes something totally different. And we talked about, you know, we actually started talking about, like, the life coach being, like, the disgusting kind of, like, you know,
well, it's just like
cringy.
It's just
it's a bit cringy.
Everyone's got, like, a vision of it, and
Totally.
we just have, like, I don't know, I hate the term ick, but, like, people get the ick with that kind of stuff. Like, you know, it's like,
they do, and I think the reason they get it isn't because it's not real. It's that because it's probably manufactured at some point.
Yeah.
Like, one of my, you know, favorite people to, like, hear speak is Joe Dispenza.
Yeah.
And yet I can't see myself ever going to him. I think he's so full of, like, really good insights, and he gives me the ick at the same time.
Yeah.
Right. He gives me, like, the things.
I
that
know exactly what you mean.
I just
I
like,
actually think I moderated myself a little bit with some of my own stuff around my coaching.
Yeah.
Because I was like, oh, it's gonna sound a certain way. I'm gonna get associated with things because I'm kind of into some weird stuff, and I talk, and I'm into, like, some real deep stuff, and then I'm like, no, let's go back to, like, push-ups and burpees and, like, and macros, and I'm, you know, it's kind of, you know, that's part of what I can help people with, or want to help people with, but it's much deeper.
To be fair, and I think you're right, because I think originally when we first met at Perpetua back in, like, 2016.
God, it feels like life ago. I think was it 2015?
2015,
yeah, we met.
It was 10 years ago.
Yeah, and like, I've said this before on your podcast, but you were a big part of the reason I actually ended up like jumping into coaching. You and Ozzy, actually.
I apologize.
Not at all. It was like this weird, you know, hero's journey. Met some mentors. Yeah. Went on a journey. But it was like, I'd kind of done it before, and, like I say, in tech, I'd kind of learned all these skills, and I'd coached people, I'd trained people, I'd done so much of this, facilitate, like, all these different skills. It kind of, when that happened, it was like, oh, that was what this was for. It wasn't for me to, you know, like I told you the story of, like, I almost moved to America and I had this dream job, and all this fell through, and it's like,
none of that would have happened.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, it's interesting to me because when I think of the kind of person I was back then and how, like, almost siloed and tunnel visioned I was about what was going on, when I really think about it, I was like, man, I felt so lost at the time. But
Did you?
Yeah, 100%. Like, I scared, fearful.
Really?
Yeah, that was, when I think about, kind of excited, but also terrified.
What was terrifying?
That I'd be found out. Right, like,
I think every coach goes through that.
Oh, for sure.
I got a friend of mine who's an animator. He's a wicked dude, and he was so talented. He's someone who unfortunately has got, like, Adam Giles. I mean, he maybe disagree. He maybe just be like, you were, like, telling me, you know, give me grief, but, like, I accidentally coached him, but, like, he he's an amazing animator, and he'd be like, he worked for some massive companies, won a BAFTA, he's so talented, and I could see his talent, and he was like freelancing and getting paid nothing, and the guy was like incredible. And then he got like some really serious jobs, and he's doing really well for himself now. He works in the video games industry. But there was a point where he was working at one of those big companies, and he's just like, I'm just waiting to get found out. I'm waiting to get found out. Like they'll suddenly know that I don't know anything, and he's incredible. And now he's like, he kind of believes in himself.
Totally,
he's leading a team, all this kind of stuff. But
that was inherently the lesson. Is right, like some people have just insane self-belief, and it's really admirable. Sometimes it's kind of disgusting, but other times I'm like, man, that's so crazy. But at the time, I was just like tunnel vision, absolute terror and fear about the future, and like not knowing. Insecurity is like pervasive, but one thing I did understand the few times I could like let my blinders down is I could notice people who were like significant, right? Like I could always notice like that person is significant, and Oz was one of those people where I like, we talk every once in a while, but he's always somebody that had like a very, I knew he knew what he was doing, or at least I respected his like arc. Same thing with you. There's a lot of people that were great at that time, but actually you and Oz stand out. And me and Aaron talk about it actually all the time when we're like looking for coaches or we're interviewing people. Aaron will say this repeatedly, and I agree with her. It's like, why can't we just get a Gilesy? Like, why can't Gilesy just be like, we need somebody like Gilesy because you. And to be fair, I don't think I've ever asked you what you think about specific exercise or like, it's something else, which after.
Oh, thanks, dude. That really means a lot, genuinely.
It's genuine. I think like you're one of my favorite people to like talk about coaching with and to just like train and hang out with. And I think that says more than anything else for me to constantly try to be like, oh, I wish that person was around more. Yeah. That means you influence in such a positive way. It doesn't really matter what you think about exercise. Your influence is more energetic. It's more like, man, I think you would influence things in the right direction. Keegan has that kind of same feel where he's just like, if he's in the room most times.
It feels weird that I've not met Keegan. Like, I feel like I have. Because I've
you just missed him.
Yeah. We always seem to like miss each other.
One day.
We kind of chat. Yeah, one day.
My feeling at that time was like, this will come back around. My feeling, and this has happened a few times where I'm like, this isn't the end. Like, it's not going to like go away. And when that happens, I'm always curious as like what the arc is. So
it's weird. I've always felt like called to like, I've always felt called to like hanging out here and spending time here. I've like always really enjoyed it. Like even Utah as a place, but with you guys especially. But yeah, it's kind of I miss the Perpetua days. Like we've talked about all the guys in the last week. Like Mario and Rusty and Alexis and just that team, like Pricey, like just some good people. That time was like really special. Like some of the members there as well, like super fond memories. Like I don't know if it's a rose-tinted glasses because it was my first kind of like proper CrossFit gym is where I started coaching. But I've kind of been chasing that like that feeling and that experience. Like it's just such a good time.
Yeah, I like it was. It is one of the best memories that I have.
Yeah, same.
All the fear, everything involved into it. Aaron too. Like I think we really like. I would say that we like leveled up during that period, and I would attribute a lot to training with you guys. That whole gym, that whole experience. Was like
I mean, I was
open. Yeah.
I started CrossFit when I was 30. I started coaching.
Oh wow, no shit.
Yeah. So I'd done like a lot of sports and stuff, but I felt such a pressure there to be good. So I just like. I was all the time like learning, like watching other coaches, like trying to copy everyone. Like I remember you being like, I'm going to do a bit of a seminar before I head off. You should come. I was like, okay, 100%. I was like in. I wasn't even coaching at that point. I was just obsessed with it. And wanted to like move better. Still don't move as much as well as I'd like. I remember a few coaches getting annoyed with me because I didn't move. I'm like, like kind of get what you're given, but a little bit on that kind of sometimes with your physiology, but but I always striving for that kind of stuff to move better, be better, like try and understand more, like learn more, and that's never really left really. But a big part of that was that environment. I think that's also something that we haven't really touched on too much, but
Yeah.
environment is I think can be so
Critical,
critical because
for sure.
since then I've gone to other environments and felt really stagnant. And I don't mean that disparagingly, because I've been to a lot of gyms and people might be like, what? We like, I just think some people bring the best out in you,
for sure,
and some people help you level up, and sometimes others don't. And I've seen other people level up in those environments because they were the right people for them.
Yeah, for sure.
But that is, environments can be so critical, and the people around you can be so critical.
I wonder about that too. I wonder, I think it's one of the things that makes like an environment valuable is the fact that it isn't permanent, that it is a constant inflow. It is multitudes as well, right? It's the people that are in there. It's like and that's one of the things that I try to be aware of here, and why I have refused to kind of make it a business part of it is because I want ultimately to control what I get out of it. It's a total selfish part of it.
Yeah.
I want to be able to this sounds really dumb, but like if somebody comes to town, gear it towards them, or like cancel it all and go do something completely different, as opposed to being like, I got to do the X, Y, and Z, and therefore facilitate this obligation to people. Because I've always just been trying to recreate the environments that I've gotten the most out of, which are, there's 3 of them. They all have like different qualities, but they were all impermanent. They were all just a blip. They happened for a couple years.
Kind of what makes it special.
Yeah,
if it was a constant that lasted forever, it wouldn't be special. We probably wouldn't be like being like, 2016 was a really cool time.
Exactly. I think that's accurate, and that's why also one of the things I'm worried about is like I don't want this to be it's such an impermanent peak, right? I want it to kind of be more of an up and down feature, because it's not. We try to evaluate all the time. Like, how's it feel right now? It's like, that feels dead. It feels stagnant. It feels like we need like lifeblood, or we're like, man, we really like the vibe now. I like how people are showing up. I like the attitudes, and we put pressure on it to change it for the better, but we don't ultimately just try to over strangle it and kill it.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's right. I could be doing it completely wrong.
Something story, but something I believe in is seasons of life. And that isn't just like, age range, or even just the season of the year or whatever. I think places and spaces and businesses and people and groups go through seasons. Like, I think that's one of the things that can be challenging for the functional fitness crew, is that everyone's competing all of the time or outputting all of the time, and sometimes I had to learn this the hard way. There were times where I needed to retreat and not be pushing hard.
You need a winter.
I needed a winter. I needed to go and recoup. And I think that even our world, we're so focused on productivity now. Outputting, being productive, doing things, and that can be really positive, like this, the obsession that we've both shared. But I think sometimes you can miss stuff, or you don't value stuff in the same. You need the yin and yang. You need the ups and the downs. You can't all just be like.
It's like we say, like if you're training hard all the time, you're actually probably not training hard at all. You're like, because it always feels terrible, but your like actual performance goes down. We need the vacillation and the oscillation for sure. It's very hard to ever experience a peak, because it does give you the artificial sense that that's what's achievable. And so it's hard to peak your physique. Man, I worked so hard to look a certain way, and then I kind of like lost it, and then you lose momentum, and you're like, man, it was just a week.
Some people manage it. Sam's doing pretty well.
I don't use him as he's a freak.
Yeah, I know. He'll annoyingly probably hear this as well, but so
he's small.
Yeah,
he's a small guy. So that's how I counteract his fucking impressive physique. He literally just looks like the most jacked toddler ever.
That's really mean.
You have to be mean to him. You have to give some kind of pressure. He deals with it fairly well.
Yeah,
and especially only because I know I'm going to make him edit this. So
like I say, he's a good dude, and he's
for sure.
insane shape.
Yeah.
I've been taking pictures next to him all week, feeling like a really out of shape 40-year-old.
Watching what he could like handle work wise, and what I'm like, I'm
glad I goaded him into that 32 kilo kettlebell as well.
sure.
You're welcome, Sam, if you do end up editing this. I'm really glad that I managed to goad him into that.
Nice. Yeah.
That was fun.
Teach him a lesson. Well, I appreciate you coming out, man. Like, this has been
Oh, bro, thanks for having me. Like,
other than this one fly that keeps
yeah,
it's just like the most I can hit it, I just can't kill it.
that was like me last night. I opened the thing in our apartment, and 3 flies came in, and they just seemed to like hoard me. And it was like the worst
You're
thing
like, what is
ever.
happening?
Yeah,
The
yeah.
most irritating.
I don't know, like if there's some kind of, if I've offended some kind of god or something somewhere.
No,
this plague of locust flies attacking me.
There's just like a season of flies lately.
Karmic effect for being a douche.
Dude, yeah. This is my karma.
I messed something up. One of these stories I told about being an idiot back in the day. It's karma coming back to bite me.
Amazing. Well, I appreciate you coming out, spending the week with us, and obviously we'll do this again.
Yeah, I'd love to. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it.